Vice Chair.
I'm Patrick Hammer, Parks and Rec Director with the town.
And Sandy Hamlin, trustee engaged.
Thank you.
Brian, you and I just received an email from Joel. I don't know if that went to the entire group.
Oh, okay. Is he saying he won't be able to make it?
Scroll up here, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
He's not.
Yeah, he's been busy. Okay, well, we still have quorum if we need to. Let's talk about the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda that anyone would like to make this evening? I did try to put more details in there this time, where normally I would just put the bullet. This time I was putting the notes in there, so hopefully you found that better for helping you prepare for the meeting. The only thing I will recommend is that Patrick had been talking to me about doing a discussion about executive session and what goes on in an executive session. So I'd like to recommend that we add that at 5F, but add it tentatively. If we're running late, we can always push that out. But if we think we have time for a 10-minute discussion on that, we would add it right there. So that's the recommendation I'll make. Any other changes or corrections? Okay. So I'll make a motion to add 5F for an executive session review. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, passes unanimously. Okay. We're on to public comment. So it's rare for us to have public comment, so thank you for coming out. If you all are from Saddlebrook or hear about the Zaharias property, we got a lot of chatter about that today, so I think something happened where it was brought up that we would be discussing that. I think it's worthwhile for us to just explain a little bit about how that works within the committee. So tonight we're going to be talking about a recommendation to the board on how we can protect the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir. We've got various pieces, and it's time to make a recommendation that when we think a development plan is coming sometime this year, we want to be prepared with our recommendation. As far as Zaharias goes, though, because there's an active development plan, we really are not to be talking about that. There's some discussion whether it's, the committees are in a quasi-judicial state. Some board members have different opinions, but the town attorney feels that we are. And so we really need to honor that until we're told otherwise. But the thing about that is, so we can't make a recommendation to the board until that development plan has been dropped. So that's the position we're in. What we do is we rank the properties in terms of our priority. Zaharias usually falls at the top. I can't imagine that it won't be after we finish our reviews in the next month. And then from there, we'll be, figuring out what to do. And again, we'll advise the board, but the board is really the group that makes the decision about what can be developed and what can't. And usually, if a developer were to come in and to build on that land as it's zoned, they have the right to do so. They don't need to come to the town. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Patrick, but as I understand it, they could build. Normally, they want to change the zoning to be able to do higher density or something else than the way that the land is already zoned. So that's why they'll come to the board, and that's why we have our opportunity to protect, ask for things to protect the reservoir, et cetera. So that's where it's at. We actually did make a recommendation about 18 months ago to purchase that, and that actually kicked off all the conversation about when is a committee quasi-judicial and not. And so, just so you know, it's a valuable piece of property for us as open space. We just have to wait in the process to be able to make the recommendation to the board on what we'd like to see done with that. So with that, if you'd all like to come up and speak, by all means. I would ask that we keep it to 5 minutes tonight, though. We do have a fairly lengthy agenda. I won't be too strict about it, but
Do you want me to pass it along?
Yeah, sure. I'm Kathy Cardy-Mullen, 1250 South Boyero Court. What's being passed around is something that was proposed 2 years ago it looks like we're at the condensed version of this now. So, but this is looking from the reservoir out to Zaharias with all kinds of really wonderful trails and overlooks and educational signs and connecting trails and habitat and all the good stuff. So I know that you're talking about the recommendations for protecting the HHR tonight. So I kind of had to reset what I was going to say also, and because I'd like to support what you're doing. And these are things that kind of are important to me to consider as you're going through it. One is that the prairie dogs be humanely relocated if possible. We have a clause or some ordinance here in town that gives you details on that. And I know that from year to year that changes with the Prairie Dog Coalition, what you can and can't do in Colorado. And the, so that's something that's just have to kind of look into see what's the latest on that. And the thing is if you remove the prairie dogs, you remove the hawks, the eagles, and the 150 other species that depend on them. Most of those 150 other species are like bugs, so. But there's, there's a lot of rodents and things in there too. So it does keep the ecosystem going. The burrowing owls, now, those need to be monitored and protected during breeding season, which in Boulder County is March 15th to October 31st. So right now, they're a threatened species in Colorado. Their summer home is here. They do migrate, but because of the elimination of all their habitat, which was the prairie dog colonies, they're going to go from threatened to endangered. So that should be addressed. I'm not sure how. Peter might be a better one to check with on that, and Steve Jones, a birding expert, on how they would check in on the burrowing owls before they just build blatantly. The habitat for the waterfowl, that's kind of, what that's diagram that's being passed around is about. And HHR is very special to me and a lot of the people here. If you're a birder, if you love nature, which I know you all do because that's your committee, it's really, really special. And it's home to winter migrating resident and summer ducks and geese and pelicans and we had songbirds and sandpipers and avocets out there. We have even had a sighting of a deer that was out there, and that was in the past year, which is amazing. Steve Jones, who's our bird expert in the county, and really he's nationally known and recognized, he spoke to the board back in September after the breeding bird survey, and his recommendation for the buffer was, he said all the reports that he's seen are 50 to 100 meters. So he said, that would be pretty much in alignment with what all the other reports that he has seen in similar situations to ours. Of course, the bigger the better. I mean, open space would be the best buffer yet. And last night I presented to ProStack because I thought that there was a chance that we might be able to do a joint venture between like a community center or a rec center and jointly split it with open space and have that on one end and have the open space at the reservoir end. But I don't think that's happening. So, but you never know. It's still not happening. So there's the possibility. So the habitat's important. The airspace, this is something that hasn't been mentioned, and I don't know if I didn't see it in any of the reports, and that is people that have lived there, and these folks live there in Saddlebrook, when the ducks and the geese and the pelicans take off to fly, they need the airspace, like airplanes do, to land, twist, turn, and safely and take off. Buildings would impede that, obviously. So also the updrafts they need to catch up and down would be affected by any buildings. So I don't know what you do with that, but that might be something to just throw in there as, have an engineer check it out, or it's for the protection of the wildlife that we do have, which is dwindling. So if we can save somebody with, a couple 100 yards or whatever, that would be terrific. I know that a lot of the hawks and the birds of prey will do their aerial displays and courtship displays in the air, and they need a lot of space. So, and they love those prairie dogs. They love to eat them. This is something that I'm not sure. this would be something Boulder County would do, probably, and that would be build an island in the reservoir for protection, because the pelicans come all the way from Greeley up here to eat. And like Steve Jones said, there's a lot to eat in that lake that they don't get to a lot of other places. So that's kind of neat, but they need an island to nest, to sleep on at night. And most ducks and birds like to be on an island because it keeps them from predators on the ground eating them. And if we had it big enough, tall enough, I mean, this might be a recommendation from Open Spaces, if we had it tall enough above the most water level that ever possible, you could put mud flats on there, and then all the avocets of this town, of the state would come and nest there, because there aren't that many mud flats around. So that's just a creative idea, a consideration to throw in there. The last year there was the developer presented to the community what their scheme looks like. And they had above the beautiful cattail marsh, which is the filter for all the water coming into the reservoir, a clubhouse pool right above it. So that means noise, disturbance, possible runoff. So the location there, I don't know if this probably isn't part of your thing tonight, but if, keep that in mind, that if there's a way to relocate that to a less sensitive area, nature-wise, that would be worth it for the animals and the birds. And then the bike path. There you go. I get Patrick's attention. That's going to happen no matter what. So why not make it a win-win? Right now, that highway is so loud with the new construction. They put concrete in there, and it is so much louder. I don't know if you hear it from your houses, but it just comes rolling right into the whole community. And when you get those motorbikes on there at night, on Saturday nights, they're racing at 2 in the morning, you hear it all the way up. It's just crazy. So if you bermed it with, like they are doing now at Lanterns, if you've seen that big berm with where all the tractors are going up, you can't see the highway. So they could take the dirt from the development, and the developer would win because they wouldn't have to pay for somewhere to take the dirt. They could put it and make a nice big elevated path for the bike path from Broomfield to Superior. And what that does for the riders is if you elevate that up at least 10 feet, the higher you go and the further back you go, the views are incredible. It's like when you're sitting at Sticks coffee shop. It's the whole Front Range. It's absolutely stunning. You don't get that at ground level, but the further back you go, or if you go up like to a second story, it's spectacular. So the people coming through on the community, I mean, we could go out there and walk and look and see what the mountains are doing, which would be kind of neat. But it would also be, you could plant it with trees, because we're the city of trees, and have fresh air for the people riding by, as well as the rest of the community. You'd have site pollution taken care of, air pollution mitigated a little bit, and some of the sound pollution, because tire noise goes straight out apparently at like tire height across the ground, and it'll get absorbed into earth burns. And so you wouldn't have that loud noise as much. And I'm sure the prairie dogs would love that. Well, they're going to be gone, so I guess that doesn't matter. But
Okay, we're running along here.
Okay,
Wrap it up.
all right. So those are the recommendations, and I hope that you'll want to come out to the reservoir, and in your inbox, we're going to have the registration form. So if you'd like to come, since you're on the committee, I highly recommend that all of you get out there at some point. If it doesn't work for you, bring your families, write down on the registration when you can come and the date, and we'll try to make that happen for you, because there's lots of really cool stuff happening right there. Let me just show you just a quick picture on my phone of these buffleheads are out there right now, which are beautiful, and they're swimming all around, all over the place. There's 2 males and a female, and there's one pair that are trying to ditch the other male, and they're just like constantly going everywhere else. So there's always action. Every hour there's something different. It's just a wonderful show, and it's just soul recharging, and I know you like that, and whatever you can do is appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for being passionate and coming out and talking to us.
Yeah,
I appreciate
you're welcome.
it.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to speak?
Hi, Kate Kelly, 2035 Eagle Avenue. I live in Saddlebrook. Not going to touch too much on the development because more of my concerns are kind of directed toward the Planning Commission and the town board. But I just want to kind of reiterate what Kathy was sharing about the open space, as much of a buffer as possible as our request. I'm not an ecologist. I not an expert on birds whatsoever, but my favorite part about this in the last couple of years, I mean, I'm very disappointed with the development, but that owner has the right to sell to whoever he wants. So my ideal vision for that would be the largest buffer possible with some sort of community center on it. And it's just really inspiring the passion that has come out of this, whether it's just our neighbors or people across the street off of Weldona and that whole neighborhood. The passion that's kind of been invigorated, and it's just this like reinforced sense of community has been really inspiring for us. We're first-time homeowners and just feel really lucky to be in Superior. So having that as our backyard and then having a sense of community that's been created around it with shared values has been very powerful. So I'm just asking you guys to really take a look at these ecological studies. If it's not a local company that's performed the ecological studies, to take into consideration what Boulder County or the city of Boulder has recommended, because that's so far over my head, but the sense of community that's grown around this is really powerful. So thank you guys for your work.
Okay, can you write your address down or say it one more time for me?
2035 Eagle Avenue.
Got it, thanks.
Yes, Caitlin Kelly. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for coming anyway. It's nice to have at least some people in the audience, so. Appreciate it. Okay, so moving on to discussion. So, the first one is the HHR protection measures. I think, or you were able to distribute the list that we had, correct?
Yes.
But we have it to bring it up and look at, right?
Actually, I think I have some printouts too, if somebody prefers that.
Okay. So when we talked, one of the takeaways from the board dinner, if you weren't able to be there, and actually, was it the same group? Or maybe it was except Kevin.
Yeah.
But basically, one recommendation was to do a position paper like we did for Town 15 as a way to capture what we think our recommendations are. I think that was good. Trustee Lasis preferred to have more of an executive summary. You know, he said, I really don't want a 20-page document to have to go through. Not that we would produce a 20-page. We've got a 2-pager here now that we're starting with, and I assume we'll trim it down. But what do we want this document to look like in terms of structure?
So can we do both a executive summary and something that has a little more detail? Because I think one of the trustees asked for something that could be shared potentially with a developer.
Yeah.
And so, you know, having some more specific recommendations in a bigger document might be helpful in that respect. So can we do both?
I will give you the keys.
My thought was, why not just combine it into the same? We could have the executive summary up top and then expand below. Just do it that way. 2 documents is tough, because then if you're referencing one, if you're referencing the document, you don't really know which one they're referencing. So that's my thought.
And you're gonna have to put an executive summary in a longer document anyways, so.
And then the other question I was thinking about on how we might organize this is, some of the pieces are on the water management or pieces within the reservoir as opposed to the development next to it. And should we try to separate those? I mean, maybe it's just a section, but it does seem like if we needed to give a list to a developer, the water drawdown schedule isn't something they control. So somehow tagging it or putting it in sections for something around that was a thought. And we can just see, I mean, and I don't think we have to have the full structure defined, but what I'm thinking is that we want to make a recommendation, and maybe we could get some help with this. So if we wanted to make a recommendation around this, would we need to have the structure of this document done before we could make a recommendation tonight? I mean, it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing, because we might need some more time to refine, and we could wait another month, obviously, to get it fully done and then make a recommendation.
I would say get it as baked as you can get it.
Okay.
Before making the recommendation. So I would say, some consistency on formatting and really get it as succinct as you can before we fire something back to the board. I think anything that eliminates bounce back questions that they may have,
Okay.
you know, if we kind of tackle it. And then kind of Peter, to your point, we were having just a quick dialogue before the meeting started. In the event any development application comes forward that OSAC or ProStack or CAPS is asked to weigh in on, at that point, the committees can really flesh out as much information as they want based upon what they're seeing. And that information gets included and passed on to the developer.
My thought is that we won't get this document fully done sitting here tonight. I think we'll get it really close and have the ideas, but we'll want to format it. But we also are a week late. I mean, our next meeting is going to be in 3 weeks, so it'll be here before we know it. So I'd like to propose that we flesh out the document structure, circulate it, get final comments, review it one last time at the next meeting, you know, a quick review, and make the formal recommendation there. But I'm open to other suggestions as well. Okay.
Are we allowed to do some tweaking offline afterwards?
Well, we'll bring it forward again in the meeting, so I think that totally should be, that totally is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let's dig in.
So what we have up here is more or less what you've got on the printed copy. On the projected one, I did put asterisks by the things that we might ask Saddlebrook or the county to do. Like, for example, there was a recommendation for additional buffering between Saddlebrook and parts of the HHR shoreline. So that has a call out there that's not on your sheet. Another thing that is on the document in both cases is sort of a more general preference about this property as why it's valuable as open space. And I don't know whether that's something that we can really say at this point or not. I mean, can we?
So I think that if we're going to make a recommendation to the board, then that probably shouldn't be in there. That's my gut feel, but maybe you all can help there.
State that one more time, so I want to make sure I'm kind of fully understanding the.
So if you look at the first set of bullet points, it says OSAC's strong preference is to preserve the property as open space because.
Yeah.
With it, that could be.
I think the simple fix is to almost to play the what if game, right? And should a development application, or at the time a development application comes forward, OSAC would like to recommend to the board. I think that there's nothing wrong with starting to kind of say, in the event this happens, we're just ready for it. And I think that that's consistent with what the board, what I heard from the board during the dinner is, do we know exactly when? No. Do we know exactly what it's going to look like? No. In the event it comes forward, do we want you ready? Yes. So I think a little bit of it, especially since you're going to get a really thorough opportunity to look at this in the FDP stage, and we're page turning and we're looking at construction details. When that comes forward, then it becomes from if it comes forward to we see this and this is what our recommendation is. So I think a little bit of it now is just the wording.
So I'm actually not able to edit on here.
If you go quickly, just click that, do save as. I think when I converted it, I can just save it where I know we'll find it.
Or alternatively, I can just take notes on here and then go back to it later.
You know, I wonder, because I pulled it off into a Word document.
We can all take some minutes.
Or no, if you want to do that.
That's great.
And then what I'll do is see if I can open the version on my computer and I'll kind of go along with you.
Great, thanks. So I guess if anybody has any particular feedback regarding why we are interested in that is open space. One thing I'll particularly mention is that this is the last prairie dog colony in Superior. And whether or not we feel that prairie dogs are beneficial to open space, I know that's an open question for a lot of people. It is the last area where prairie dogs do exist anywhere inside of town, as far as I know. So,
I mean, I think this looks solid. I couldn't think of anything else when I looked at it in terms of what we would add.
cool. So what about new amenities?
I mean, I like
Any suggestions
the
there?
trail there because we do have on our trail plan, there is a trail that goes around from the dog park, kind of meanders around to the other side, and it's always ranked low because the property hadn't been developed. But when it, you know, if it was to be developed, we want to make sure that it kind of would work, right, to put a trail around the bottom. Yeah, and then the gazebo, sure.
Is
Let's
there,
see.
is, I really liked a lot of Kathy's ideas. Are they all in here somewhere?
You know, I don't think we had the berm,
The island,
nor the island.
I love those.
All right. So I can just make a note to add potentially.
And I think maybe we need to tag these as what we would ask from the developer versus not, because the island isn't something we want the developer putting in.
Right, so again, just to make sure everybody's super clear on this, we consider the HHR and surrounding area as one ecosystem, but the reservoir itself and the dam are owned by the county, and we can't really tell them what to do. We can ask them, and they can come back with something. And separately, the private property, we could make a recommendation to a developer and so forth. But, you know, we kind of have to,
So would the
Kind of
county,
have to be
would
clear
the
about
county
this.
have to be the group to put the island in?
Yes. I think so, yeah. But we also have a request on the water drawdown, right, that is in there, and I think there was maybe one other thing that would be a county ask rather than a, I mean, we just need to tag these, right, and then we'll figure out how to ask them, like it would be either it's a section or something to say, like right now, we just need to say county versus Saddlebrook versus, like you've already got them with asterisk, you can just keep that notation, I think
Okay.
works, so. But I think we should add an island, why not?
Yeah.
if they're okay with it.
I mean, we can always ask, right, and then advocate for it, and it doesn't have to be at a development time. This document can live on, no matter what happens there, to keep trying to augment that, so.
This is editable now, if you want to go that route, this route's also fine.
Okay,
Either way.
thanks.
What about the suggestions about airspace also? Because those are important. Is that in here somewhere?
That's not,
The airspace one for me, while I understand, is so hard to define. I mean, how do you tell a developer what to do based on airspace?
Just lower building heights as you're getting closer to the road.
But is that what airspace means? Is it lower building heights, or is it access? I mean, it seems to me that needs to come from an ecologist.
So I have a similar concern about the island, actually. Was not part of, at least I don't remember reading it as part of our study. And so I would be interested in verifying that there's no negative impact of putting something artificial in the middle of the thing we're trying to protect. I mean, I don't feel like maybe there's other people who have better background for this, but.
My thought is that it would have to go through Boulder County to get as a good idea for it before they would just build it, so. But I agree, right? I think we need to make sure the experts are weighing in on this rather than us.
yeah, anything that changes the water capacity of the reservoir is going to be an item of great concern, I think, to the county. So
The wildlife gazebo and the trail, the signage, well, it says outside the buffer. But the other recommendation was that we would actually ask the developer to give the area within the buffer to the town. so the town would manage it rather than the property owner. I mean, you could almost ask for a little bit more, you know, the buffer plus 20 feet, and then the town could be responsible for the trail. And I don't know what a better recommendation is there, if we'd want the developer to build something or if we'd want the town to be able to come in and design and build later. I mean, do you all have a feeling either way on something like that, or?
I mean, I guess my thought would be that there's the edge of the development, and then everything beyond that is town controlled.
Mhm.
Then there's a path, and all this other stuff. And then some of the buffering things, like I think there was a small berm was in one of the ecological recommendations, some dense shrubbery, small trees, and that sort of thing is sort of the screening between where people are ever and the rest of that open space. Does that make sense?
I mean, my concern is if we ask the developer to build it, we don't necessarily, I don't know how much control we have over what they would actually build. Where if it were up to the town, and I know a lot of times with the town, when there's a trail built that's public access, that actually gets turned over to the town, correct, for maintenance. You know, so the town plows, the town takes it over. It almost seems like this would almost be a town ask than the developer ask.
This would be, I think so, because my home borders town center, and that's what's happening with the buffer space. That's town controlled, and they're the ones that are putting in the benches and the trees. And I think that's so much better that we have control rather than having no control.
Okay. So I think that's just a note that that would be a town ask rather than a developer ask.
Okay. That's a great point.
And Ryan, or really everybody for that matter, you know, there'll be a lot of times where we do exactly what you're saying, where we'll try to get them on the hook for the upfront cost, and then we take it over after some kind of 2-year warranty period and call it a public improvement. And then that gets us a little bit of buy-in on the design standards. We will have a say in terms of like the specifications when they get to that level. But if there are things like connecting points, preferred routes, when that FTP comes forward, I would like you guys to have that kind of dialogue.
Okay.
That way, we're ultimately getting a trail network that we're happy with. Because to some extent, we'll tell them what the alignment has to be.
Okay. So maybe we don't say town, maybe we just leave it in there, and then that becomes part of the negotiation with the developer and the town. Anything on the new amenities to add?
Are we only talking about that top section, or are we talking about also the buffer zone bullet?
I'm sorry?
Are we talking about this bullet too?
No, we're still on the new amenities. Well, I think, and we do have time to think about this before, I mean, I'd rather not add 20 new things to this document between the next time, but if really a good idea comes up, bring it up and we can discuss it next time. So the buffer zone obviously is an important one. And the first bullet, I think we need to decide how to word this.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And so what we're basically just quoting in that bullet, the two sources. But my interpretation of what we're trying to say here is what we recommend.
Yeah.
So is that what we recommend? Because
so these were just all the ideas. So we're
Right.
refining the ideas. So we should put, I think we should put a number.
yeah,
I don't think we should.
right.
have
That's
both.
what I was thinking.
Well, my thought, well, I think 300 is better than 150.
Right.
With what's going on there and what could be built around there. So, and we have one of our rep sources supports it. So I say we just go with 300 feet.
I think we should get as much as we can.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is where we can get the birds to have some room to take off and
Right.
land, and, I mean, this is where the airflow issue comes in. Yeah, when I saw that, Kathy, I saw your 50 to 100, and I saw 300. It's like, wow, she'll be happy.
Well, that was meters.
Oh, this is meters.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same number, basically.
It's the same number.
That's 3.
Okay.
But I like the rest of this. I like that it's controlled by the town. A fence, you know, keep dogs and people from wandering out there. And then the additional buffering between Saddlebrook. Now that note would be that that would not be the developer, but I think you had that. Oh, you've got that down there. I think I saw that. And I thought that was pretty comprehensive.
So this is not where we would say anything about a buffer between there and the highway? This is not where we would say anything about a buffer between there and the highway? Just thinking.
No, but we can add that. I mean, that would be, we talked a little bit about sound. I mean, that's a sound. Do we have a sound section?
We
Or
have,
light
we have a
pollution?
pollution section that includes light pollution,
Yeah.
so we could add sound pollution
that.
there. Does that sound like a good place to do that?
Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the next section, the habitat.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is the buffer zone going to be big enough for the prairie dogs, or do they still
They're
have to?
gone.
They're gone?
You should check with Boulder County Open Space has all the wildlife biologists. They're the experts.
Okay.
But basically, all the ecological surveys say that if there's development on there, it's not worth having a small section of prairie dog. Apparently, there was another study that was done by the Prairie Dog Coalition a few years ago that has a different take on it, but I have not been able to either find the author of that or the document itself. So that's secondhand information for me, but I think Kathy's right. If there's a housing development on there, all the prairie dogs go.
What happened to the,
They'll find their way back, but it may not be a healthy colony.
what
like it
happened
is
to the
now.
prairie dogs in town center?
Yeah, we rescued all the prairie dogs from our Costco back in the 90s
Okay,
and relocated them.
okay.
So.
Because the coyotes have
Bears.
nothing to eat back there now. No, seriously, so, okay.
The hawks don't have anything to eat either.
Yeah.
Are they saying there's no value in a smaller prairie dog colony because then they go and destroy the grass and things they've planted?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to see small prairie dog colonies throughout Boulder in fragmented areas in development. I mean, go look at the tech park in Louisville. They look successful.
They absolutely exist. And again, if you were to ask an advocacy group like the Prairie Dog Coalition, they would say, totally keep them.
Yeah.
But I think most ecologists, and I think even the town prairie dog policy says that it shouldn't, that isolated and fragmented populations shouldn't be kept. I don't really know, but this is just what I'm reading.
There's a super tiny community on CenturyLink, and it's always just remained this tiny little prairie dog colony. It's really interesting because they usually just grow, but it stayed for the 10 years that I've watched it.
Interesting.
So I may actually be wrong about this being the only prairie dogs inside our kind of town borders. But
Okay, so for the habitat,
so these last 3 points, sorry, the third and fourth points would be county things, because those would happen inside the reservoir.
okay. And the fifth could be done at a later time. I mean, that wouldn't be absolutely critical to do at development time.
Right.
I mean, we could keep it in there because the more we could get the developer to do, the better.
And just as a position that we think that this is what should happen around the reservoir.
And then did we decide we couldn't put the island on here because we needed to research that.
Well, we have that in the amenities.
Oh, we did.
I think we should add it there, but it needs some research.
So the island's not really an amenity, though. It's more of a habitat thing.
Okay,
It's more
that's
about
fine.
that. So why don't we put that back
Yeah,
under?
that's fine.
um,
Could even go with the last bullet, with the future and ongoing habitat improvement. Because that's where the water levels come up again.
What do you guys think?
Say that again, Kevin.
So since it's likely not under our purview and something that is probably requires county study and would be in the future, one place it could go would be with the managed reservoir water levels to accommodate. So managing the reservoir water levels is a Boulder County thing too. It's part
I
of
think, yeah,
probably-
he's saying it's part of habitat improvement.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Yeah, I think it fits well there. I mean, would we normally ask the developer to do the planting? You know, when we wanted to identify what we'd say, work with us, we'll tell you what we want you to do, and then they would pay for it, and then would they install it, or would we, how does that work?
They would install it under our
Do your
guidance.
Okay.
And do we need to know at this point what types of trees and shrubs and that kind of stuff could be?
My guess is that, I'm trying to kind of think back to the last time that concept came forward. My guess is they'll come back with some native species for us to kind of chew on a little bit. And once we have like their list of plant material, I think is the time for us to really kind of dig into that. If there's some things that you guys are interested in now, plant material wise, I think we can start to throw that out. But know that, you know, we'll get a planting list with that FDP that'll be pretty hardy, and we'll review quite a bit at that time once it's forward.
Okay.
Does anybody on the committee specifically have an idea of what types of stuff would go in there? I mean, I'm no botanist, so.
I don't know that, but I think I would love to find that out from Steve, what was his name?
I mean, would Boulder
Steve
County
Jones,
be,
whoever-
what resources do we have? We would
They
use
would
Boulder
know.
County, and they
So-
would come in and.
Yeah, Boulder County will be a referral agency on the final development plan as well. And that's my guess is they'd start to look at things like plant material. And then we internally will review it. And then we have a consultant that we also asked to look at all plant material recommendations on all development projects. So,
Is that something one of us is allowed to reach out and try to learn more about and
Yeah.
find out about?
yeah.
Bullet 2 is probably a town task, not a developer task.
Right.
Or actually county, I don't know whether that would be town or county at that point. Because it's not in the water, but it would be right next to the water. Well, we can, I mean, we don't need to.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's not,
It would
the
be-
point is, it's not going to be in the
developed.
list for the developer.
Right.
I think is the most important. Okay. Do we, okay, never mind. How, are we good on that section? Okay. Prevent pollution of reservoir and nearby wetlands. Yeah, I really like the first one.
Really good points.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first 2 points break out construction-related contamination, and then the next one is ongoing ones. And I guess the square bracket there with the 88th Street detention ponds, cross that off because that is not valid.
Yeah, okay. Are those the detention ponds on the other side of 88?
Yeah.
With all the cattail in there? Okay.
And I checked with Alex, and he said that those drain down into Autry Park and then into Rock Creek, rather than overflowing into Hodgson Harris.
Okay. I mean, I think the biggest one is probably the runoff. I mean, those two were pretty big. The light pollution, we'd be interested to see what they can do. I mean, I know when we looked at Parks 1 and 2, they were talking about this fancy new lighting for the turf field that was supposed to be way more focused rather than, it spilling out. So maybe there are things they can do to keep the light within the parking lot and not out on the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else on pollution?
This is where you added the highway berm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the berm is in there now.
And so the berm, we're talking a berm next to 36. Is that?
It sounded like Kathy was saying putting it there and running the bike path.
I mean, I think some consideration of noise pollution. I mean, when you look over there, there's a pretty good dip down through there. So building a berm up to, it could be a pretty big berm, and I don't know if that's natural drainage through there. And then there isn't a bike path planned on that side of 36. I don't know, or I don't think.
Whether or not there's a bike path, the berm could be valuable.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now that the town is not going to advocate for that. We actually had talked about it as part of our transportation increment financing application through Dr. Cog. To put a trail along that side of 36 is going to cost about $7 million because there's several places where bridges will have to go. So we are actually recommending there will be a trail that'll come partway down along 36, but then it's going to cut down probably 88th, come through Autry Park to then hook up to the trail where the 36 bike trail comes down near the Flatirons Mall. The board had really and truly hoped we could run it along there, but it is cost prohibitive. That's exactly why CDOT put it on the other side, because it's so expensive. So we will not be advocating any trail along there because we're asking for tip money, and so if we get tip money, we definitely won't be considering a trail along there. And we'll have a good trail. What we have looked at is a good design. Patrick's reviewed it, the public works staff, but unfortunately what we wanted to do along there is just financially impossible to do.
Which makes it sound like you couldn't put a berm there either, obviously. But
somebody can put a berm there, but it's not going to be the town of Superior that's going to pay for it. So, and the problem is because there are these gullies that we can't really mess with.
But let me ask this, if you did have a development there, wouldn't that be a noise barrier to the reservoir? It's the same, it doesn't cover the whole distance, but
It's going to absorb some of the noise.
yeah. I want to put it there because I want to protect as much as I can, but I also don't want it to come across as, really far-fetched, right? We could say put a 100-foot fence with noise-absorbing material, right? But it's not practical, right? We have to be, I think we should be a little careful there, but that's my opinion.
No, I agree that we should focus on things that are feasible to achieve. It seems like
I would think the developer would think that having some kind of a divide between the highway and the development itself might be nice for the people living there. So I wonder
And those
if that
things would be
would
visible.
be part of it. Yeah. I don't know.
From looking at the original plans, I don't recall seeing anything like that, but it's possible. But I also don't recall seeing that from the Anderson. To Kathy's point, there's a big berm there now, but I think that's just construction piling. I don't think that's, I think there's a trail planned right where that big pile of dirt is right now, so.
We required sound wall mitigation for Anderson.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
So
again,
would you require it for Zaharias? Or any development there?
It's tough until we see what we're actually dealing with, but I think in the context of what you guys are working on, throwing an item in there for sound mitigation is an appropriate thing to do until we can actually see what we're looking at. Add it to that list of stuff, once we have it in our hands, say, yeah, it's a priority for us.
I'd like that to be more general rather than
Yeah.
exactly what the solution should be.
And that's the tough part until we actually see it again on paper, what we're actually dealing with. But we did push for it on Anderson and made him put it in.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Anything else on pollution? Thanks for bringing that up, that we didn't have that. I think that's good.
Did we say we weren't gonna put in anything about airspace, or that wasn't the place, or that was the place? I don't remember, sorry.
Hang on. We got airspace.
Airspace is just tough for me because I don't know what does a developer do? I mean, like you said, it's height. The developer's gonna push to go as tall as they can. But there's obviously limits in the development plan. I mean, while I agree with it, I just don't know what you
I just
tell
think it
them.
could be important because, you know, we could do all this work and all these details to protect the res, and then maybe the birds can't even get to it because there's a big fence around it or something. So I just think, we're trying to think of everything we could possibly think of, so I don't know.
I mean, this is an
It's-
aspirational document, so we can put in some of our hopes and dreams even if we don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't fly in and out to there and we've done all this work, then
We
we've
could
done
say
all
it
the-
should be
I don't know.
considered
It's just something
in
that's-
setting height.
It's just something that's not obvious to a lot of us until somebody who knows birds like Kathy does brought it up,
Yeah.
and now
Always
I'm
circle
realizing that that really is super important.
If we're gonna make a recommendation, you know, I feel like it would help it'd help our chances of getting it through with the developer if we had a concrete recommendation.
From someone who has an expert, yeah, who could tell
Well,
us
and
a
the
bit
hard
more.
part there is then we need to commission
I
another,
know, that's the.
another,
Yeah.
you know.
Do we have an expert, we could get something informed?
Yeah, somebody from Boulder County.
So I have sent an email, to Stephen Williams and Martin Toth asking if there's an established height restriction on the current zoning over there. But yeah, if there's a way to figure out what an appropriate zoning, like a height restriction would be, similar to what we've done on the various blocks of downtown, I do think that
Okay,
makes sense.
okay. So
And we can
should we
include
put
in that
pollution
concept.
thing? That's I don't know where that fits. I guess it just fits into the developer consideration as we, reorganize this. Maybe that's it's kind of a buffer zone issue.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I mean, from what we have now, I think it fits better in there.
So is it okay for me or somebody on the committee to reach out to Boulder County or Steve Jones or somebody who might be able to provide a concrete recommendation based on scientific evidence for that?
So why don't we do this, and I think we may end up chatting about this later. If you can send me the recommendation, Boulder County has asked that communication be centralized from staff to staff as opposed to citizens and committee members. They're getting to feel a little stretched on their time, but I'm happy to send that out if you guys have some language.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to prairie dog colony. And it sounds like you've looked at this quite a bit, Peter. I think you were trying to figure out what the,
Starting to,
I
yeah.
like that. Humane euthanization is not the same as relocation. I love that.
were you able to find the town code on this?
So there is town code. There's also a prairie dog policy document. And to me, they seemed a little different. So I think before we wrote something specifically in here, we'd want to clarify exactly what the town's actual recommendation for that is.
Yep, so the recommendation we gave to, again, it's a private piece of property, much like downtown. In downtown, they had to do humane euthanization, and I believe they worked with a group that then froze the prairie dog meat and then reintroduced that as a food source back to the raptors in the corridor was our request at the time.
So that is the policy.
That, the policy might be a bit on the
The
strong
town's
side, but
recommendation.
that's what we recommended for the downtown development.
So
And I would have to look back through which contractor did that.
We don't have to recommend that, right? I mean, we can try to save them, right?
Sure, you can recommend
We can
saving them.
recommend saving them. Just because they killed these animals, we don't have to kill these.
Yeah, you can recommend whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
does the town code, what does the town code say? I mean, we don't,
I'd have to
we don't
look.
want to recommend something that's
Yeah.
against the law.
You know, I'd have to go look and read what the specific code is. I could tell you what we did on the most recent development, but I'd have to check and see what we could and couldn't tell a private developer on their land, and I can get that to you.
That'd be great.
But yeah, you guys can recommend. Ultimately, on any development, you could say, don't develop it, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of what I'll tell you can and can't do, so.
I agree. I don't think we want to be so contrary to the town, any other language from the town that someone could say, well, you're contradicting yourself as a town, so,
Yeah.
we're not going to listen to this.
But I think we can say, even though the town code says X, Y, and Z in this circumstance, because it is the last prairie dog colony in Superior, we recommend that, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to say,
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it doesn't have to be accepted. A lot of things that have been done in town center that have not been quite what I'd want to do again.
So Patrick, is that something is that easy to find? I mean, is that pretty quick for you to dig up what the town says? I think that would help us guide.
Sure.
That would be helpful, thank you. And then I agree with the burrowing owls.
And I think somebody asked who would do that survey, and I think, was it the Smith document said that the state would do that, but you had to ask him to do it or something. But I think there was a little bit more specifics about that in one of the ecological documents. But we'd have to find out who actually does that. I think it's the state.
But is that required by the state for development? So do we need to keep it in there if this is state law? My guess is it's good to keep it in here, just to keep it on the forefront of everyone's mind that let's not forget to do this.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's state law to do this survey because burrowing owls are protected and we know they're on the land?
We don't know they're on the land, but we'd have to find out whether they are. And if they are, then they can't bulldoze them, is my understanding. So they have to check first. But again, I don't know the state law that well, so.
But we could say follow state laws surrounding this issue.
Yeah.
That way we don't have to know it.
Well, just to point out that this is something that has to be checked out. I don't know what a burrowing owl looks like, but
They're super cool.
are they?
All right, so,
I have that prairie dog language if you guys would like to
Yeah.
hear it
Yeah,
at
what
this
does
time.
it say?
If there is a healthy, living prairie dog colony located on the property to be developed prior to the time of excavation, grading, or issuance of a building permit, whichever occurs first, the applicant shall relocate or otherwise remove such prairie dog colony as may be approved by the State Division of Wildlife in the town prior to any excavation, grading, or building on the property. Relocation to a Colorado Division of Wildlife approved site shall occur in a manner that is safe and humane to the prairie dogs. The applicant shall advise the town in writing of its relocation plans prior to starting the relocation.
Okay,
sounds pretty good to me.
sounds good to me too.
That one's easy then.
Let's move him.
Yeah, that
Let's move him
sounds
on
great.
out.
All right, so the future ongoing habitat improvements, the reservoir levels, Patrick, we did have that in the standing update, but maybe you want to talk about that now since it's relevant.
Yeah,
talking about?
staff reached out to Boulder County, and Boulder County said that at this time, they're not interested in managing the water levels any different than they've been doing, which they think is consistent with the 2011 IGA.
Okay.
Was that what they look like?
So if that was something if someone wanted to change, they would need to go maybe as a citizen group or otherwise to Boulder County to request.
So anybody want to see?
They feel like they're compliant with the existing IGA, and they're not interested in changing the current water level
Okay.
policy.
So, and I think in the Spalding report, they had a different recommendation. They weren't saying, I'd have to go back and look, but I don't know if they said according to the IGA or if it was separate than something they wanted that was above and beyond the IGA. So we might want to look at that piece of it.
Yeah, the Spalding report does have a different water level management, but that's just one part of the county making a recommendation.
Mhm.
So, but I think it's fine to leave that in there because we did get that as one of our recommendations.
Absolutely, and it'd be something that we would ask the county for and not the developer.
Right.
So, okay. Yeah, and then I think the last one makes sense. Well, I think that this was awesome, how well you put this together. This is good. I mean, we'll refine it. Or I should say, what else? I'm not trying to wrap it up, but what else from the group? I mean, I don't think there's a ton of change. I think there's a little bit of structure, a few little things to follow up on, bring it back on in 3 weeks, and we'll have a recommendation.
Sounds good. And I just want to thank everybody who provided feedback. I mean, I got tons of details from people, and that made it just easy to cut and paste into this outline. So thanks, everybody.
Can I just get this clarification? My understanding is there's no proposal right now to build on that land. This is just we're getting ready in case there is a proposal? Okay, thank you.
And let me clarify, so our planning department may have a development application, Parks and Rec does not, I have not reviewed one. Stephen Williams, the planner, may have a physical submittal, but
But no hearing's been scheduled on any proposal
No, not
for
at all.
such areas property?
Mhm.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, well, that was going to be the long one, so appreciate everybody working through that while we're all fresh. Property evaluation process, I don't have a whole lot to say here except for thank you for those that have submitted your reviews. Those are due in 10 days. I'll send out another email reminder to get those in. Now that the town has agreed to purchase the Ridge property, we should decide if that comes off our ranking or not. You know, to me, it's something that isn't crystal clear because of, you know, on one hand, Town 15 is owned by the town, yet we're still ranking that because there's the potential that, you know, discussion that could be open space. My understanding of Ridge is that it's specifically being purchased for future utilities for the town. So, I mean,
But it's future utilities.
so like they may want to add additional water. Like there's a
Utilities,
like
water, air,
sewer,
electricity, whatever. Okay.
You know, that.
Utilities.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually town infrastructure utilities.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, do you all have an opinion? I mean, I think that maybe when we talk about trails, maybe it makes sense that it's town owned, we could discuss trails through there, but because it was purchased for such a specific reason that, I mean, we can always ask that it be open space, but the town has a plan for it. So I guess talking through it, I think we should take it off.
I think the question is whether we're wasting our time.
I don't know that we're planning on doing anything anytime soon to that property. Again, you can always kind of do the general statement of, hey, if you're considering doing something on this, OSAC would like to look at it.
Mhm. But this would be in our priorities for purchasing for permanent open space.
Oh, then, yeah, I would say maybe coming up with a different language since we own it. But yeah,
Well,
you're right.
But this is in our rankings, right? So when we're saying this is the open space that the board should consider to
Yeah,
purchase
I think you're
for-
probably spinning your wheels a little bit.
I mean, it usually ranks last, and it was why the town decided to purchase it for that purpose, or it was one of the reasons stated, I should say, that the
Yeah.
town acquired the land in the way that they did, right? No open space money was used to buy that property, or, anyway, so, one less to rank, but it would have, I mean, my guess is, it would have been on the bottom
Been last, right.
anyway, so it's not, to me, it's, you know, to me, it's good because it will stay open for the foreseeable future, and even if it's built, it won't be high-density condos or commercial. It would be some other utility building, so. Okay, any other questions on that process, or?
I just was gonna say, it seems like there's difference between, or ranking for acquiring for open space versus keeping it as open space sometimes, which makes it hard. But also just looking at Ridge 2, thinking forward, if we knew it's gonna be the way it is now for decades, we could think about how we could enhance it and make it look prettier.
Sure.
Those kind of things, I feel like those are things that our committee might be able to do. I don't know.
And I completely agree. The intent of the ranking is giving the town a prioritized list to spend dollars on
Right,
acquiring. So I
So
think
we're
we
talking
could
about-
discuss that,
yeah,
but I'm just saying in the form, and, you know, in what's due in 10 days,
yeah.
let's
Okay.
cross that one off.
I'm talking about something totally different, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you bring it up, right? Because it is good to get clear on how we're looking specifically at those properties.
Yeah,
But when we talk about wildlife encouragement and other things like that on our work plan, absolutely, that fits.
Okay.
So I think that's a cool idea.
thank you,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Community outreach material with the events coming up soon. I've listed here the ideas that came out. This is fairly standard of what we do. Trail map, open property or a property that's available for purchase map. Allison and I had a little bit of back and forth, but we talked about the community outreach piece, and yeah, I saw those over there, and what we decided, the town's actually gonna just print out more of the postcards that we all got in the mail that we'll just have at the booth. And these are perfect, right, because they're a great size. They've got all the ways to stay, you know, hopefully you guys all got these, just pass if you don't, but got these in the mail. But, you know, we'll just have these. These are awesome on the booth. Hey, you know, do you know how to stay connected? Have one. They're actually great because you could write notes to someone if you wanted to on here as you were passing them out. So I think that'll work really well. And then the other thing we do is we've got a collection of a few talking papers. We have an e-bike talking paper, a Rocky Flats talking paper, and Town 15, just in case it came up. You can always add to that if we think, you know, maybe, you know, Vanessa, if you wanted to talk. If you're trying to recruit more Raptor volunteers, you know, maybe that would make sense. So this is where we're at, but what other ideas do you all have on what we should have at our booths?
So, for clarity, are we planning on having our position papers on these with like enough copies to hand out?
We don't hand them out. What we find is not that many people take. They're really meant for us. When someone says, oh, what is the e-bike policy? We can't remember it all. So usually Allison was kind enough to laminate it. So we've just got it there and say, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. This is what Boulder County's doing. This is what we can do.
Do we have money for souvenirs like OSAC caps or something?
Normally,
For the kids or
we
something?
do some sort of swag.
Yeah.
And that's actually something we need to decide. We talked about it last time, but we never came to a conclusion. Last year, we did little first aid kits, just a little bag with a few Band-Aids in it, whatnot. Year before were dog poop bags. And actually, those were pretty popular. People were coming back later saying, I've used up all mine, you know, can I get another one?
Did we have like that Superior printed on them or something?
Yeah, they were,
Okay. All right.
they were cool.
I like that.
The idea we were kicking around last time was sunscreen. you know, a Town of Superior sunscreen branded little ring. And, you know, Allison knows about what we spend on this. I don't know if I remember the number, but something like, I mean, the sunscreen versus the dog bag, they'll be about the same cost. And if it's a little bit more, we get a lower quantity. It seems like we always have extra of these things, which is good, because then we just recycle them the next year. So we just need to decide what we'd like to do.
Looks like you're about anywhere between $400 and $600 on swag.
On the swag, okay. I mean, I looked at the sunscreen today and I found one that they were about $350 a piece. So those might be expensive for swag, because you'd end up with 100 and you'd probably go through those pretty quick. But I looked for 5 minutes. I mean,
You can do it cheaper.
I like the sunscreen. It encourages people to come out and bring their kids, and, you know, I think that's, everybody likes the dog. I mean, I still have a dog food bag in my house, actually, but it's not my dog thing, but.
It's discriminatory against cat owners.
Yeah.
We don't
Not
want
discriminatory.
cats out because we don't want them to kill the birds.
That's true.
But, you know,
Okay. I mean,
I was trying to be humorous there. You know.
I mean, I was leaning towards the,
You need to be sensitive here, right?
Yeah.
I was leaning towards the sunscreen as well. That's why I was looking it up, just because we discussed it and there seemed to be a little bit of momentum last time.
Yep.
But open to other ideas. I mean, we can be creative here, or there's always next year when
Well,
we
we
can
can do
see.
both. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't just have, you have to have.
Well, it's just budget,
Oh, okay.
right? We've got $5,000 for the year for all this stuff, so.
Yeah. So you're saying it's either dog poop bags or sunscreen?
Well, or something else.
Somebody
I mean,
else had mentioned chapstick, maybe?
Yeah. The other one, I don't know who was doing it, but they did the sunglasses.
My dog ate those
Yeah,
sunglasses.
those, they gave that out at the training.
Sweet. I'll take them, because I always.
But I mean, it's just things like that. I mean,
I think they gave us all that stuff out at the training that we went to that
Yeah.
Saturday.
yeah, you got
We got those
the
Band-Aid
bag of all the
bags. Yeah, we got
leftovers.
all that stuff.
It's good.
Have you cleaned the office?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Good call.
Yeah.
Leftovers.
I say sunscreen.
Okay,
I don't care.
I agree. Okay.
That sounds great.
But I guess the other thing is when we're out at these events, or if you're out at some other event, just keep your eye out, what you see. Sometimes you see some cool ideas from what other people are handing out.
So I bought something today that I think is like top, it's these rings that kids or people can put on, and it's got like a little hummingbird feeder thing on the top of it. That's what it is. It's a hummingbird feeder ring, and it just came out. Yeah, and I bought them at the bird store in Boulder today for my kids, and they're so cool.
Will come up and,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
So the bird inside the ring?
Yeah,
sure
so
I
it's
can
just
handle
like this little
yeah, like the little suction cup, yeah,
hummingbird
little cup.
Yeah.
feeder receptacle.
Is it like that?
It's like,
I could get a hummingbird.
yeah, that's what it looks like right there.
That would be cool.
And they're
That's
brand
actually-
new, and they're super cool. They're not expensive.
They work.
Down here,
Extension cord? I got it.
they would definitely work in the mountains. I don't know. I mean, I get hummingbirds in my backyard every
Yeah, I've
year.
seen hummingbirds. I've seen
And
hummingbirds.
they, they'll come right up to your shirt if you're wearing a red shirt, or if you have
Have a price.
if my girls put a flower barrette in their hair, they'll come
Oh,
right
really?
there. Yeah, so why
They're not
wouldn't
cheap, but
they?
What if they just
I've
came
seen
out?
some
we
at
could
my
hold on to
bird
that
feeder.
idea
I don't know
next
if
year.
there's like a bulk place to get them or whatever. They were $5 each at the bird store, but I don't know if there's.
Website
And I don't know how
special is
many
$5 each,
things
too.
we hand out. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a wildlife
That's
thing
pretty cool.
that's just cool. They come in all different colors.
I just know that my granddaughter would probably be scared if a little bird came flying at her.
Pretty sure I would freak out a little bit.
Be exit stage left.
I'm getting one for me.
I know. I was gonna order them, and I was so excited they had them in Boulder.
That's funny.
Anyway,
I think, how about you see how
Sunscreen is
it
fine.
works? Let's see how-
Sunscreen is better
Well, let's
for
keep the idea,
I love
because
the idea.
maybe next year,
we'll test it in my yard. this
yeah,
year.
let's, I mean, but it's great to have an idea built up. Or let's say maybe near the end of the year, we have a little bit extra budget and we go buy 100 of these for a Chili Fest. And well, maybe that's too late because you're in the fall, but I mean, we can always add. Maybe we go through all the sunscreen and we need to add something, so that's a cool idea. Okay, the sunscreen it is, back up the bird feeder ring or for next year. So there we go.
Sure, that's in the notes.
Yes.
Perfect.
So the next one was the outreach to other open space committees. So this was follow-up from the last meeting. I will say I got one response from the committee on this. Now, the response was actually very good. Do you guys, so a bunch of people had been reaching out. I think there was one town that was ready to meet, and they just said, propose an agenda and have your staff reach out. Do you guys recall, was it Louisville or Broomfield?
That was Broomfield.
Was it Broomfield?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Lewis.
So my recommendation is, you know, after looking at what got sent in, it was all good stuff, but another way we could do this, and from talking to Allison, she said just good ideas come from talking about what you're doing. So almost what we could do is we say each of us would have 10 or 15 minutes to just present the most important, or the big things that we're working on, or the things that would be relevant to an adjacent open space. I mean, we would talk about the board's priority for CenturyLink, we would talk about Trails Day, we'd talk about trail connectivity into downtown, we'd talk about you know, all the other events. They would go, and then we would just leave 30 minutes for discussion. Because the way Allison said they've done this in the past is invite that committee to one of our meetings, but we would start an hour early. So it wouldn't take up, you know, half of a meeting with the time we have. So that's how it would go. It seems like that would work. And the nice thing there is that we could get conversation going. Sean said sometimes there wasn't that much to talk about, and so they were shorter. I think we could make enough to talk about, but keeping it to an hour would be nice, just because then we'd have our meeting and then we could say, okay, we need to shut down and get to our meeting. But what I think we should do is reach out to Broomfield staff with that recommendation and just see what happens. I mean, I remember the response said, we'll try to schedule something in Q3. So it was pretty far out, and that was 2 months ago. So I think we should just try to get one of them on the agenda. And it's a fairly simple agenda, right? We don't have to talk about very specific things. We could say, we'll show you ours, you show you yours, and we'll talk about it. So
Louisville was the one that I'm checking our notes from last.
Oh, okay.
Said that they were interested, but it won't happen until late summer, early fall.
That's the one I'm remembering.
Yeah, and then Broomfield just asked that Superior staff reach out to Broomfield staff with proposed agenda, which would be created during this meeting.
Okay. So if there's two.
And then the third piece of that actually was that there was a desire to reach out to Jeffco and see if there was an interest. And I have some recollection that Sean might have. Do you have that recollection?
I remember Sean was pushing that. He really wanted to, that was coming from Sean. I mean, my biggest concern is fitting in
Right.
3 this year. And I actually don't think 3 would come together. I mean, but would you all be comfortable in 2? I mean, we're asking for 2 additional hours of our time to go do that.
I think if we spaced them out a little bit,
Yeah.
we could see what worked and what didn't work with the first one, then maybe we could optimize the second.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, and we could do the first one, and if it's a complete dud, we could, but it's one data point.
Yeah.
You know, we probably should try another committee and see, you know, we'll learn a lot more from talking to 2 committees than talking to 1 committee.
I didn't so much mean can it as potentially if there were things like, oh, the meeting could have been more productive if we had done
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So we get lessons learned.
Yeah. Okay.
It
Well-
seems like things that we might talk about with Broomfield would be relevant with Jeffco, but things that we're talking to Louisville about
Yep.
wouldn't be with those other two.
I think we would tailor the most important things relevant to that adjacency, would be how we would do it.
I guess I'm saying that if we met with Broomfield, it would make sense to also meet with Jeffco around the same time.
But I think trying to pull all that together could be a logistical nightmare.
Right.
I mean, we could invite Jeff, we could say, hey, we're meeting with Broomfield, are you interested in attending? I think that could be an interesting idea. And then it's a soft, maybe they come, but not making it a requirement for the meeting to happen. Same with Boulder on Louisville. Because one of the big things that we want to talk about is that underpass under 36, and that's right on the border of Louisville, Superior, and Boulder County.
Yeah.
So they all three are involved. So
Okay.
I think that's a good thought, though. A good way to incorporate potentially the counties into the discussion. Are we chewing off more than, is that going to be, does that seem reasonable? Okay.
So should we come up with our talking points for Broomfield, our agenda? Or do you think? Kind of the skeleton of what you already said.
Yeah, we can.
As I recall, Broomfield did want an agenda rather than.
Yes. And our February notes say that we created tonight.
Well, the hard part is, we want a presentation from them on what their, 10 to 15 minute presentation on their, so you think that an agenda of you present, we discuss isn't specific enough? I mean, we could put in there the kind of things that we would like, we're gonna present on. Because for Broomfield, I think we would discuss, CenturyLink, obviously, with whatever, it might be a real quick discussion because we may not be able to discuss much.
Right.
But
I think it's specific enough, but I'm just wondering if others have anything else that they feel like should be added.
but we could put 4 bullet points.
Yeah.
This is what we're thinking we would discuss in our part. You would put Jefferson Parkway, we would talk about, maybe we'd lump Jefferson Parkway and Rocky Flats and the new trail system, just to get their take on their concern of the health issues of everything going on there. CenturyLink, Sean, did I have?
And Sean sent
He had a
me
good,
some stuff.
I gotta find that though.
I think he sent it to you too.
So
He has some real specific notes about what
Yeah.
he was thinking about. And it's mostly about the land on the other side of 128 and
Mhm.
what Broomfield is thinking about with that. And he has specific things down here about pieces of land that are for sale over there and potentially Sevier and Broomfield working together and creating buffers between the parkway and just,
that might fit together as a topic of open space on the interface between Broomfield and Superior. So there are some on their side, there's some on our side, and
yeah.
how we could work together on those or something.
The buffer between Superior and Broomfield though is, I guess it's not all, it's a little limited, right? It's the CenturyLink Ridge along there on the golf course. And
Yeah.
then down, that's all developed.
Everything
So then
else
you
is
get
pretty
to
much
the top. The top of CenturyLink is Jefferson County, but there's just that one little cutout that's Broomfield. But everything around that is Jefferson. So I don't actually know if Broomfield has any open space near us. That's my only thought on that. What could Broomfield offer in terms of buffers?
Are they able to buy any of that stuff over there though? I'd be interested in knowing what their committee is thinking about for that
I don't know
area.
if it's Jefferson County.
Right.
It's not in Boulder, and not in there. I guess they could and annex it, but I don't know. It's worth that. We could ask them. I I guess that would be the discussion, right? We don't know, what do you discuss around any sort of open space in here, and they might just say none.
It's obvious there's a lot of growth going on back there, and so I would think their committee's kind of thinking all that through and how they would,
Growth
well,
back
if they're
where?
not, but if it's not Broomfield is what you're saying, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Just along the other side of 128, all that development back there.
Yeah, and I don't know which one of that is Broomfield and which
Yeah.
one is Jefferson County, or,
Up to Indiana, I think, is Broomfield.
there's a
So
little
what I should
cutout, though,
say-
those little apartments over there are Broomfield. And it's weird when you look on a county map, because it's just a little
Is it?
square in the middle of Jefferson County over there. I don't know how that worked out. But,
Isn't that where they have their jail and detention facility, isn't it?
oh, is that what it, oh, okay.
No
Well, we
trains
could
there.
ask them.
Really? I don't even know where that is.
I mean, my concern about getting too specific, well,
Sweet.
what do you guys think? If we're really generic, they may not want to engage.
Right.
But if we're too specific, they may say, well, that doesn't interest us, we're not gonna show up. So I don't know.
I think the middle ground approach sounds like the right one, with a handful of semi-specific bullet points, but not, you know, I mean, I think so let me just read back what I'm hearing here. So probably some quick overview of our existing trail and open space with rankings of priorities for the future as a lead-in to the CenturyLink discussion. Because that's the closest to their turf. And then hopefully that would open up a discussion about plans for, or potential joint plans in the CenturyLink area. I mean, if they don't care about that, then I'm not sure what else are we really gonna?
No, but Sean does have a good point with the whole Rocky Mountain Greenway, with the whole concept of a way around. There will need to be a way around that connects Broomfield to Superior somehow, right? Not through that area. So I think that's a great
Okay.
topic to discuss.
When you mean way around, you mean way around Rocky
So
Mountain?
so a way to connect, so they're trying to go from Rocky Mountain Arsenal to, what is it, Rocky Mountain National Park? And this is the last piece. Yeah, a way that people can choose to stay on the trails, but not go through Rocky Flats. And that, when we've seen a lot of the plans, that's what they talk about, is there'll be trails, but there'll also be an option to, or they'd like to be an option to go around.
Got it.
To not go into that land.
Seems like a natural thing
What's that?
seems like a natural thing that we should want to talk about.
Yeah, I agree.
So all those things that are built back there now are Jeffco?
When you say
All
back
those,
there,
all
like,
all the development along 128 on the other side of CenturyLink.
that's weird, that's Broomfield.
That is Broomfield.
Yeah.
Okay,
You quickly
Yeah.
get into Westminster over there as well.
okay. Because all those folks very much use the CenturyLink property.
Mhm.
So I think just talking to them about that, well, as much as we can.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
we don't know how much we
Yeah.
can discuss, but, I say we have a rough agenda, we throw it out there, they say they're not interested, we could refine, or we could see what they say, so how many bullets do you have for that? Do you have,
I've got 3.
okay, I think 3 is good.
Mhm.
CenturyLink, Rocky Flats, and,
And then a generic introduction to Superior Open Space.
Mhm. I mean, the other one we can always put on there is the expressway,
Right.
because that's gonna come right through Broomfield. Won't go through Superior, but we have concerns about that near Rocky Flats, because that impacts us, and just get there, it's something to discuss.
Right.
And then I think we could reuse this agenda with Louisville. I don't think, Louisville, actually, we would make a different list. I mean, I think that talking about CenturyLink and Rocky Flats is just, it's such a big issue, why not?
Yeah.
But then we'd substitute out one of those to the 36 underpass.
Yes.
That's a key piece for us to talk to them.
Agreed.
Okay. I think we have a plan. Everyone feel good about that plan? Okay. Awesome. Well, let's move on.
Hopefully they're not like, let's do the April meeting.
Yeah. I don't think it'll get
I don't
pulled
think
together that fast. But you never
You
know.
never
Stranger things
know.
have
That's
happened.
right.
That's right. All right, Patrick, budget? Do you want this?
Yeah, and I did a printout too, so, for notes on my end. But, yeah, and I apologize, if we get through this and this is not what you guys were looking for, just let me know.
Okay.
As I was kind of looking back through my notes from when I was doing OSAC, to then when Allison was doing OSAC, to when Martin was doing OSAC, I think we've all kind of done it different based upon whatever information you guys were looking for at the time. But what I thought I had understood is maybe a little bit of a stronger explanation of what's budgeted out of open space expenses this year.
Mhm.
Is that consistent?
Last year, that was the big thing that we
Okay,
looked at.
cool.
But also, do you have the fund balance and?
And so here's what I'd like to recommend on the fund balance is, so I reached out to the finance guys and they said, when we get through the April financials,
Okay.
after we're kind of cresting over Q1, that it would probably be a little bit more complete of a picture on fund balance and some of that bigger picture stuff. So I'll be more than happy to kind of bring that back.
The other thing that gets interesting there is that there's still some payment coming back from Wildflower Park.
Yeah.
And then there's also some payment coming back from track A and H out of the TIF from the.
Yep, and I can actually kind of go over some of
Oh,
that
yeah.
big
Okay,
picture
yeah,
stuff today. But what I thought I would do is just explain to you guys what kind of the projects or where the expenses are currently out of open space. And some of this you may already know, some of this stuff you may not care about. If you have additional questions on it, let me know. You know, right off the bat, our staff, we tend to spend between about $10,000 and $12,000 annually on irrigating our open space areas. That's primarily going to be Tract H and the Colton Trailhead. Tract H has a really robust irrigation system in there. So the majority of that open space irrigation fund, which is, you know, anywhere between 10 and 12, goes for that. Annually, we spend about $75K a year on just what we call baseline open space maintenance. This is open space mows. This is fighting noxious weeds if we need to. This is extra trash pickups if we need to. The Colton Trailhead restroom gets paid for out of this line item. There's some, if we top dress the Colton Trailhead parking lot, which you'll see us do this year, comes out of that line item. The other thing that's kind of interesting is a portion of the Boulder County Youth Corps. So we bring on a crew of Youth Corps kids. We've always treated it as like a local employment project, because unless you're working somehow like Costco or the swimming pools, there's not a lot of place for kids to be employed within their own town. And Youth Corps is a way to do that. And we typically put the kids to work on open space type projects.
That comes out of that same.
It does.
75. That's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, and actually, just kind of, I don't know if you guys know anybody, it is getting increasingly difficult for us to even find kids who want to work as part of the Boulder County Youth Corps. So last year was the first time we weren't able to staff a full team. And the jurisdictions in this area were all facing that. I think with the bump in minimum wage, doing physical labor on trail development and true, like good open space projects aren't as desirable. So we're actually really going to start trying to put the word out, because I think that, you know, that's kind of the background that I had and gotten into Parks and Rec, is doing that kind of basic labor work and trail building.
What is the age requirement for that?
Yeah.
I want to say 15.
Okay.
If not, I'll double check.
Okay.
It sounds like we'll hear some advertisements coming out.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love having the youth corps kids around. And if you're looking to get a job in this town, and this year we don't need that many kids to work at the pool because we have so many returning, unless you're going to snag a gig over here, there's not a lot of places. And, I think for us, we'd like to have our teenagers be able to work in their hometown. We're spending $5K on irrigation clock upgrades. We do have irrigation clocks and electricity in the open space to run them. The biggest expense this year is going to be some rollover costs that we had on the Coal Creek Enhancement Project, and I know we'll go over this a little bit later. But right now we're estimating about $200K of final cleanup work on the Coal Creek project.
That was one question I had. Is that eligible for replacement from the TIF?
It is not.
It is not.
It is not. No, now the park elements themselves will be. So parks 1 and 2 will be. But that creek was this kind of no man's land. And I don't remember, you might have been around when we started the very first 2013 discussions on what to do with Coal Creek and parks 1 and 2.
I mean, I was in town, but I
Were
wasn't
you?
on the committee.
So just kind of a quick background is we actually kind of had to fight hard with OSAC. OSAC brought it to us to fight to retain that creek as an amenity that would be controlled by the town, as opposed to either something that would be developed right up against or something that would just be this kind of post-flood area that was really not maintained. So the town board at the time said, hey, what if we were to kind of master plan this creek out of open space, and then we'll build the 2 parks on either side of it with eventual funding from the developer and TIF reimbursement. So that's why you're seeing the creek go in now, last year, this year, funded out of open space completely under the town's control. We partnered with Urban Drainage Flood Control District, who also ponied up a significant amount of money to get it built. But it's not eligible for reimbursement.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But the creek is still a pivotal part of the park design, right?
Absolutely.
It's meant to be. I don't know if you all have seen the plans for it, but it's really cool where the creek is kind of the centerpiece of the parks, and you'll be able to access the creeks from both sides and recreate in the creek as part of the park. I thought it was a really cool design.
Yeah, and some of just the institutional knowledge, some of the OSAC players, I want to say Ken might have been one of the newer ones. I mean, that was a grind. That was a good fight that OSAC led with ProStack and the town to get what really was just almost like this annoyance, right? We're either going to put development right next to it so we could have a creek walk and our residents can enjoy it, or we're just going to kind of leave it as is. I mean, and we said, well, we'll take it, and we're going to turn it into something. And the whole goal was when you came from Louisville to our side, you knew, right? Like you knew you were coming into Superior. We wanted a really healthy, sustainable environment for Coal Creek once you got this way. And I'll have a little bit more info on that later. And then right now we've got the 100K planned for Shan Shan Trailhead.
Okay.
And to add to that, from the board dinner, the board has asked you guys to come back with maybe a small, medium, and large scaled option for a budget recommendation going forward. So Ryan, to your point, we're still paying back. General fund is paying back open space at a tune of about $343,000 and some change a year, plus some interest on top of that. And we have that payment stretched out to 2020, and then the open space fund is paid back in full, plus the interest for the building of Wildflower Park.
So there's another 750, 800
Correct.
coming back.
Okay. And really, in the out years, the only thing that I think may be worth mentioning in the out years, the town budgets in these 5-year increments, is in 2021, we start to get back into trail development money. I don't know who in this group was kind of on the committees when we used to have what we called the old 5-year trails plan, which was a combination of general fund dollars plus open space dollars equal the total project. But when the board elected to do Wildflower Park and pay for it out of open space, and then when we decided to tackle Coal Creek, I mean, we took essentially $4 million to build projects now. So things like trails really got put on the back burner. Once open space is paid back in full for Wildflower, trail money or open space funds for trail money or some other priority kicks in. So right now we have a general placeholder of $1.5 million in 2021, and we're just generically calling that trail improvements.
And that's not from the open space fund, that's from the general fund?
This is from the open space fund. Yep. So we used to actually have trail budgets, kind of we call it like pre-wildflower and post-wildflower. Pre-wildflower, we always had money set aside in the open space fund, a healthy amount of money in the open space fund for trail development. And if you guys can remember that expedited trails process from 2016, the committee said, hey, we're interested in maybe doing some things different with this open space fund, including trail connectivity. So this 1.5 placeholder in 2021 is that holdover from the 2016 expedited trails project. I will say priorities for you guys may change by then. If CenturyLink gets some momentum, obviously things change. But no,
Yeah,
that's
the
kind of
question
what
I
we're
have,
looking
though.
at.
So that's $500K a year? Is that what I mean, how much gets set aside? I mean, where does that 1.5 come from? I mean, that's not from income that year.
No, it's just an allocation of the overall open space fund that year,
But
kind of
every year
generically.
there's some amount that gets allocated.
Right. So right now, the open space fund itself is, collecting about $500,000 based
Right.
on sales tax. I think, and I can follow up on this based off of my budget notes. I think that there was a desire for the board to not forget that 2016 expedited trails project and say, look, let's make it a placeholder out of the open space fund. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's not we have to do it. It's not it literally is a placeholder, I think, so the board didn't forget the history of what that project was.
It seems like there's more coming out than going in. That's what I'm confused on. If there's, it seems like there's a certain dollar, we're getting $500,000 a year. How much of that each year is allocated towards these trails or that whole system, right? If we're not growing that balance, it's not going to help us.
And I would agree, and I think that this group, which is different than that group, right? Most of the players are different. I would agree with you. From what I'm seeing out of this group, I think your priorities are maybe a little bit different than even the 2015, 2016 expedited trails group.
But we have some time.
But you have some time. I mean, if you guys in the budget process this year said $1.5 million for trails is maybe not a huge priority, yeah, we allocate it to something else. Let's say all of a sudden Louisville, City of Boulder, and Boulder County are interested in making the connection from Davidson Mesa Underpass to the regional trail. All right, maybe that's Town of Superior throwing a little bit of money in the game. So, be absolutely up to you guys to prioritize that.
That's helpful, thank you.
And then the other thing that Allison gave me, and I don't know, you can tell me if we want to go down this path or not. She gave me kind of the National Trails Day budget.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want to go over that now? Is this the time for that?
I mean, we can go over it. The fact that we're staying the same and we've got the same budget, I mean, if you all want to hear how much we spend, I'm fine with it. I mean, maybe
we're about $4K into that event, and then it looked like we're about $850 to the COSA conference. I think that, right, Vanessa, there's a dialogue we need to have about the Raptor boxes. And that being an unbudgeted item, do we want that to come out of the open space fund? Do we want that to come out of the OSAC 5,000 fund, that's in the general fun. And then, you know, just, do we do a holiday party? Do we buy swag? So, but.
So we have 5,000
Yeah.
allocated from the town, 4,000 of that goes to National Trails Day, so a good chunk of it, right? We pretty much fit the bill for the, and it's the tents, and we pay for the wagon ride guy to come in and some other people. And the COSA conference is absolutely money well spent, in my opinion. I mean, this is, you know, Kate will tell you the experience she had, and Tracy the same from the year before. So, anyway.
Cool.
Well, I mean, and maybe we should have that, maybe we could move that discussion up now, since we're talking about
Sure.
dollars. So when you're done, maybe we'll just wrap that piece in.
Yeah, and then that was really it. I did want to make sure, whenever it's appropriate at the budget discussion, that we talk about the Raptor box, because I know that Allison was starting to put some legwork into that and looking at costs, and wanted to circle back around with you guys on, is that an OSAC $5,000 area? If that's the case, we might need to shift some things around. Or is this something that's more appropriate that we just let the board know, hey, we've got this unbudgeted opportunity. It's not a high dollar value, but it could be a really big win, right? I mean, this could be kind of a flag in the ground cool project. Do we spend a couple $1,000 and really pull something cool out of it? So I think that's probably an important conversation to have.
Well, let's do that now then.
Yeah.
And are you wrapped up? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like I have everything I wanted to know.
And then I'll follow up with
Budget.
fund balance after we get through first quarter.
Okay.
Is it okay to ask questions about all the expenses that you?
For sure, yeah.
I just was wondering, so if we did buy land through, you know, if there was something for us to acquire and we had the opportunity and we bought land, would that mean that we can't use all our money because we would need to set aside something for these kind of expenses going forward? Okay. And then my other question was just thinking ahead when you were mentioning about the irrigation at Colton Trailhead and some of these other things within the 75K, there's going to be some of that maintenance that comes up with more expenses for Shan, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep. And not a ton. We've actually now, you know, as we go through the analysis with the restrooms and we put together that total budget package, the small, medium, and large, you'll see us, after you guys kind of vet through your amenities, you'll see us at the end come in and tack on a maintenance number. If the large is heated restroom, running water, electricity, and irrigation, we have some maintenance numbers that we'll plug into that. If we say, we want to actually keep this thing kind of minimal, maybe we do a screened in porta potty and see if it actually gets used, you'll see that number come back down. So,
Okay.
That was it. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Those are good questions. Yeah, relevant to our, well, soon to be discussion on Shan. But yeah, so Patrick, I talked to Allison a little bit about the bird box, and what she was explaining where it was getting expensive was that there has to be Wi-Fi. So we kind of missed, I don't, maybe we didn't miss that, but I didn't quite grab that. So there's got to be power, Wi-Fi. It's got to be somewhere where somebody that can't, you know, kids can't go, you know, throw a baseball at it or muck with it, right? So then she was saying, well, maybe we could attach it to a fenced-in building, you know, that the town owns. But then she got concerned about the warranty on the building if they're drilling holes into it or attaching to the building. So she said it's a little bit trickier than she originally thought. And so it doesn't mean it just means we need to figure out what we want to do. Do we want to, I mean, about $1,000 was the number that I heard Allison throw out. Yeah, so it's $1,000 to $2,000
Per box.
That's my guess, yeah.
Mhm.
So we could say, absolutely, we want to do it, and talk to, you know, now if we say that needs to come, and now if you all say this needs to come out of our money, that's gonna be a stretch, because it means dropping something, it means dropping a lot out of trail stay. You know, and it means cutting trail stay in half is the trade-off there. So we're pretty far down the planning path on that. I don't think that would be prudent this year. We could look at it next year, but the other option is to ask the town for money. The other thought I had is maybe we could incorporate it into the Shan-Shan design somehow. I don't know how you would protect it, and I don't know if that's a good spot for it, but that was another thought that I had. Thoughts?
Aren't we too late already for this year?
It depends on the species, and that might
We're
be
too late for
important.
the owls that you were talking
Yeah, and that
about,
might be
yeah.
important to what we want to think about, you know, if we feel like people would be more interested in a larger species like the owls versus a smaller raptor like a kestrel. I think we could do kestrels still, possibly red-tailed, but yeah, I guess it would only be kestrels now.
So I actually got a kestrel box in my yard from this organization that you all have been working with. And the guy said that you pretty much want to have a kestrel box up by the end of March, because that's when they start getting their territories, and then they'll start nesting in April. With a barn owl, they're a little less picky about it, and I think he said he successfully put up boxes as late as early May, but as early in April as you can do is better. So yeah, you're right, we are, I think, getting pretty tight, unless we want to take a chance on a barn owl box.
My concern is I would hate to rush this,
Yeah.
because we're on a schedule.
Yeah. We tried after the last meeting, and everybody was so interested, but and I know Allison worked on it super hard, and it just turned into a lot more, like you said, than we thought, and I tried to communicate with her and see what I could do to help, but it came down to she was working with the city on trying to find a good place, so I really didn't know a lot coming into this meeting.
Well, so we've learned a ton.
So yeah, it does sound like we need to think about it for next year at this point.
And I recommend, you know, we will have a chance to recommend budget items to the board. Is that September-ish or October-ish?
We'll start that process with you guys this summer.
Okay, so we're only a few months away. So knowing what we know now, it seems like that would be appropriate to get budget for next year, and then we could do an installation hopefully right away, you know, January or February. That seems like
I think
it
it's
would
an
be a good
exciting
approach.
idea. Don't let it fall on a crack.
Does that
Do we,
proposal seem okay with everyone?
yeah, do we want to talk about whether we want barn owl versus kestrel versus?
I'd say due to time, let's shelve that.
Okay.
I really want to spend time on Shan-Shan,
Yeah.
and we're at the 2-hour mark already, so.
Okay.
And based on that, Patrick, I think we'll push the executive session discussion, if everyone's okay with that also. So, so based on that, let's get into Shan-Shan. And actually, the other one should go fairly quickly, but Patrick is going to show us some pictures of the Coal Creek construction too, so that'll be cool. And so for Coal Creek, or I'm sorry, for Shan-Shan, Kevin, the recommendation at the board dinner was to try to come back sooner rather than later with a small, medium, and large ask for what we would want in terms of amenities. So kind of pie in the sky, you know, we'll have to prioritize, but we can really have fun with this. We'll have to do, I think, when they say fairly soon, do you think it would be for the budget? I mean, by the budget cycle this summer? Is that the gate on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next few meetings, we're gonna have to be pulling this together. Today, we were gonna see where we're at and then talk about ideas, but not come up with the final list yet today. But and with that, I'll let Vanessa take it away.
Are we able to show the
Yeah, Patrick can show it for us.
PowerPoint that you guys put together?
I mean, and Kevin, we think we got the board pretty excited talking about that trailhead. I mean, it is going to be such a neat spot to just stop and take in the view. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, so pretty much Tracy and Sean and Patrick met. I just wasn't able to be there and put this together. And a lot of the committees gave their input on.
Oh, Patrick, can you?
Yeah,
Oh, is it?
it's just, it's loading slow.
Okay, yeah, cool, thank you.
A lot of the committees gave their input, except for, we haven't heard from ProStack yet. And the Historical Commission got back to Sean just recently, since he made this. And they're working on the name, and they're really excited about that. So basically, this PowerPoint they put together has all the ideas in it, and whether or not it is potentially a doable thing based on talking to Patrick. And then, so we wanted to show those to you all, but then OSAC hasn't had a chance to give their ideas for what they would like to see at the trailhead. So today we wanted to get your ideas on what the other committee's ideas are and any new ideas that you might want to contribute to that list.
All right.
And so some of my ideas and Tracy's ideas and Sean's ideas might be in there already.
I think I saw some OSAC ideas.
Yeah.
And I guess first to say, thanks to those other committees for spending their time, especially when this came up after work plans were approved and getting this scheduled. We know that's not the easiest thing to do, so we really appreciate them contributing and hopefully to make it a really awesome amenity in town. Okay. So we've gone through this. I think you just want to get to, so do we want to just go through each real quick, or did everyone have a chance to read this? And do we want to get to our ideas? I'm open to either approach.
I think unless somebody's got strong objections to what the other committees have recommended.
Okay. I mean, Cav's stuff I thought was awesome. The pictures of the picture frames is pretty cool. Now, I guess the question, before we get into this, Patrick, I mean, we really can go down that hillside if we wanted to, right? I mean, there's obviously a cost to that, but we own all that land, correct?
Correct.
And we don't know how the trail will align when it's all done. The trail kind of loops over, but it should loop back somehow, right? If there's going to be an access gate down below.
Down below?
Yeah.
So something that we're actively working on now is to figure out that lower trailhead access up from what'll be the Rogers Farm over the kind of switchback up the hill. I think right now we're like a 14% grade, so we're kind of looking at a straight shot. We're trying to avoid going onto the county's property and reopening up this really broad discussion of amending management plans. I will say that during that board dinner, we heard from the trustees, if you guys want a restroom, let's put a restroom. Yeah. So on that big full meal deal, we're opening that conversation anyway.
But this would be as an augmentation step rather than holding up the first.
Right, so absolutely, I think, you're looking at the whole hillside.
Okay.
There's anything within that parcel, what I hear is.
The hillside also has, is there an agriculture lease? I mean, there's cows out there, right? I've run by the cows there plenty of
I feel like
times,
I haven't
so.
seen them in a long time now.
You know, Ryan, that's a good question. I'll have to check if we've got the barbed wire fence still running between the county's open space and Shan Shan.
I mean,
I don't know that they can actually get over onto Shan
Oh,
Shan.
onto
I
Shan
do
Shan,
believe that,
okay.
I think that there's a
they
barbed
can
wire.
get on where the trail is, though, they can
Yep.
get onto. And I
Yeah.
don't remember if there's a fence. Anyway, just something we should,
There's an old rickety barbed wire and old
Yep.
pilings that are still there.
Yeah. And there's some other, we've heard some various speculation of, is there an old septic system in there? You know, that house was not on it wasn't on the town utilities. I believe it was running well water, and I think there was a septic system out there. And as you can kind of see the tiered kind of
Yeah.
plateaus, anecdotally, I've always heard that there's some infrastructure in the ground under there. But, yeah.
okay. Oh, you're saying, because that could potentially help with a facility, if there is infrastructure, or are you saying
Or-
it would all have to be dug out?
It would all, depending on what you guys want to prioritize, like, it could potentially all have to come out
Yeah,
as
okay.
well.
Okay.
Awesome.
So, I mean, the only reason I bring this up is on top, the space was limited, but we can expand our thinking because space really isn't an issue when we think about this, so. Okay. Oh yeah, so caps, cool, picture frame ideas. Yeah, I like this one, they photoshopped in exactly what it would look like, that was clever. And, ACES, great ideas. And yeah, I don't know, I'm not trying to rush through these, but these are pretty awesome ideas we got from those groups. The Youth Council came out with a ton. And I appreciate you guys going through and prioritizing what could be done there.
My only caveat, Ryan, is we reviewed this list prior to your guys' dinner with the board, where the board said small, medium, and large. So
Oh,
on,
I see, you guys.
so on some of these
Without that
things,
lens.
on some of these things that, I was saying, yeah, maybe not, under the context of
They're not gonna say yes.
trying not to go back to the county to
Right.
really open this thing up, but it seemed like the board was at least hearing the priorities from you guys.
So on these discussion points, is this something we want to discuss tonight, or do we want to try to get the list flushed out and then do some homework and come back and discuss at the next meeting? My concern with some of the discussion is that could get lengthy, but it's okay if we want to do it. I'm not sure how you want to approach this evening.
Yeah, it's a big list, and it seems to me that we couldn't do all of it, but I guess maybe we could. I don't know if there's anything on here that somebody would think, no, we shouldn't do that, and reasoning why, or things that are missing from the list that you all have ideas about.
My recommendation, or my thought, is that because Sean and Tracy are on this committee and not here tonight,
Yeah.
that maybe it makes sense to round out our ideas, circulate it again, and have people come back ready to discuss these other pieces. I mean, for me, now that we have small, big, and large, like bathrooms obviously needs to go. I think bathrooms should go back on there, but so now I just said what we should do. But let's round out the list and then just see how we're doing and go from there.
So you're saying, let's, as a committee, add what we think to the list, and then
Brainstorm our ideas, and then we can come back and discuss the items we want. So maybe at the next meeting, the hard part is next meeting, we are going to review the properties, and that tends to be a lengthy discussion when we go through the rankings of all the properties.
Can we do a kind of similar to the rankings where we do like each of us go through on our own and kind of do the same idea of like, this is our small, this is our medium, and these are our high? Or is that too much?
I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, we're putting together 3 different lists, a small, medium, and large. We're also gonna take this whole list and go through it and look at how much different things cost and other factors, and then that's all gonna come together. So it almost makes sense to just put everything that we and the other committees kind of think could be a possibility, and then take that list and after all the other filters, see what we come up with.
Yeah, are you thinking that
Unless-
we would just put it in a spreadsheet and then we would all rank order it and then come back and discuss the ordering? I mean, that's one approach we could take.
No,
Now-
I was thinking that we would just add our ideas to what everybody else's ideas are, and unless there's things on here that we don't like, we would
Right.
just take that whole list, and then our committee would find out the costs and what the easy things are to do and the hard things are to do, and kind of rank it that way, and then come back to you guys.
I guess the question I have for you in terms of procedure here, would we give you an entire list and say, go cost all this out? Or would we just say, this is what we want in priority, and then you would cost it out after that?
Yeah, well, the small, medium, and large option, I would prefer that I understand what you guys want in each one of those categories, because what I'll most likely do is we'll have to go out and we'll contract with the landscape architect and pay them a couple grand to give us the pricing. I mean, I guess it's actually not a terrible idea. The more that I'm listening to you guys talk, and just say, hey, give us a price of everything on this list. And then you truly do have the information to kind of like drag and drop, I guess, is maybe it.
Okay. But I think we should weed it out a little bit.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
helpful, because
It's big.
it's a big list.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, but the benefit, I guess, too, though, is, you know, we're gonna have to spend a little bit of money to get this information from somebody anyway. So if there's some stuff that you guys are just not interested in at all, by all means, please take it off the list. It'll just save us having to track down the info.
So I think we feel a little uncomfortable about doing this without Sean and Tracy here. I mean, we could add the things that we talk about, or if there are things that we like say, absolutely not, and that's the consensus, then fine. But they did so much to put this together and have given it a lot of thought.
I did meet with them after, and so we've gone through all this together as a group, but I certainly don't know as much about it as Tracy, and certainly not Sean.
I mean, when we're together, the sledding area is interesting. I'll just throw out one point on that, is that to me, a good sledding area is manicured lawn, not weeds.
Yeah, there are very few days of the year where it's actually a good sledding hill, where there's enough snow. Where it's
the
actually
good sledding hills around Scott Carpenter Park, I think Ruby Hill, it's grass. And so we would have to decide, do we want to try to sod and irrigate that hillside? And to me, that's against kind of open space
I agree.
priorities. So anyway, okay, sorry, I did again what I said we shouldn't be doing, but let's, so what else do we want to put on the list? What other ideas? I mean, I'd like to add the bird box
I think that's a neat
to that,
Like,
unless there's a reason not to, unless we think that it's not a good spot for it.
It's on.
Well, you'd have to have power and Wi-Fi up there.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, some of the
It's a
other
big
stuff
ask.
already has
Could be a
power.
big ask.
So, I mean, like the charging station from ACES would be a lot of power.
Oh, right, yes,
So
exactly.
you're already, if we're already running power, at least we could design power instead of now, putting a power cable in a hose and running it out somewhere. We could build it for it. The
That's-
Wi-Fi piece, that's another matter we'd have to figure out, but if you can run some Cat5 in there, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do an LTE as well. Either way. I totally forgot about the other utility going in there, so yeah, never mind.
Well, there may not, right? Those would kind of be related, right? like, do we want to get utility in there versus not?
And the webcam could be solar powered as well. I mean, it's just one panel with a battery
Okay.
that could do that as well.
Did they, Vanessa, you were talking about, and Peter, about how raptors like those big trees. Do people ever build artificial structures as perches for birds like that?
New York City.
Skyscrapers, 100-story skyscrapers?
Peregrine capital of the world.
Really?
Well, they'll put in just ledges, there's businesses over in the park over there that have them inside their courtyards because they've built things in there and all the employees watch them. And I know Oracle has them. And Boulder builds stands for ospreys. It has a cam on there that's really popular. Yeah.
So that could be something.
Some places
To
you
add
can
to the
just
list.
add a ledge to something that's already tall, or like you said, manufacture an entire tower, which Boulder, I think, has done both.
I mean, if you did a pavilion right up on the edge of that, up there, there maybe a ledge would work, or you could extend a little bit above. The other, who's I talking to? And another idea that someone had was building a staircase, like a mini incline, from the bottom up to the top. Could be an interesting athletic draw. If you want to go run some stairs. I don't know, it might be ugly, I don't know, but it could be interesting.
So many hills. Anybody want to run stairs too at this point?
There's a lot of crazy people around.
Dear Lord.
Those are the ones I had.
I don't have any to add. I just have a question about the small garden at the youth council. Did they add any other info, do you know, about
Oh,
what that would be? What's the last one on there?
I think it should have watermelons, so when you run up that hill and you're all hot and tired, you might go pick up a watermelon and just cut it. So, perfect.
I think Sean put discussion point, and I think that might be just, that was something that maybe he didn't get to with you, I don't know. But I don't know why a small garden would be a discussion point, I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you the context
Okay.
of our conversation is that space didn't feel like a good fit.
Yeah.
It's not ultimately up to make us, to staff to make the recommendation. So I think it just, I think the kids may have been leaning more on like a vegetable garden.
Yeah,
community
more like a
garden.
But
community garden,
then,
yeah.
we kind of turned to talk to, well, maybe you could do like a pollinator garden. Maybe we could do like native plant species in some type of interpretive garden or something along those lines. It was like, I think the gist of where we were headed.
So I sent comments back to, or suggestions to Sean and Tracy, and then reviewed what they came back with. And the only one that got a strong negative reaction from me was having food trucks up there.
Yeah.
Seemed like not open space to me.
My other issue would be it would take up all the parking on the weekend. I mean, it would fill up that space, and that's not.
And the
intent.
trash, what would happen with the trash?
I mean, it seems like there may be a place for that in town somewhere,
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
when
Community
town's built
park on
out.
Saturday mornings
and,
during soccer.
oh,
Yeah.
man. Now
And
you're
that-
talking.
That isn't the Park 2 design at Coal Creek actually does have kind of like a food truck busker square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I said to them too, is like, you could walk just down the hill and be more or less there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I threw out there to Sean and Tracy is I think this is a good point for you guys to determine what you want your open space uses to be. Again, it's not up to staff to make the recommendations for the committee, but to your point earlier about things like sledding hills and, I do think at some point it would be good, even for the committee, to have some standards on what you want these open space areas to be. Man, maybe that is open space areas off of McCaslin should be a little bit more defined. And, you know, as we look at making long-term maintenance plans, which is a goal of mine for open space, I would love to have your guys' feedback on some of these bigger picture items. But yeah, things, you know, that were interesting is when we were building the Colton Trailhead too, this concept of, are you going to create this amenity that then allows people to love the open space to death, right? We talked a lot about the Colton Trailhead and limiting the parking. You notice at the Colton Trailhead, it's actually a big square with like almost 2 more tiers to it, because the original plan potentially was to throw that much more parking in there. And then you have to kind of weigh out, well, if you build it, they will come.
Yes, I know.
And thinking bigger picture about what impacts does that have on the greater open space network. And maybe you do want that. Maybe we do want that. But I do think that next level of thinking on something like this, you know, Sean and I talked, as this will become a regional thing. You know, we're at the western edge of the Coal Creek Trail. This has great connectivity. So I think the impacts here, you know, so keep that resource piece of it in mind as well, is with the people, with the amenities, comes things like impacts on the open space resource itself. So.
Yeah,
Well, that's actually a really good point. I mean, if you had all these structures going down that hillside versus driving up McCaslin and just seeing all of that beautiful open space and mountains to the west.
Well, and I don't remember who I had the dialogue with, but when we were first talking about this, they said, you know what, you're going to drive up McCaslin, you're going to have a restroom at one of the highest points in your town. You should probably think about that. And I hadn't thought in that context of, oh, right. You can see key equipment finance from almost anywhere.
Yep.
Do you put in a restroom? And yeah, you probably screen it, but it was an interesting take.
Yeah.
And it kills me because I can't remember the context of the conversation, whether it was when we were getting ready to present it to Boulder County or if it was with one of you guys. But I hadn't personally thought of it, of saying, oh, I don't know. I don't know how we would feel about having a restroom at one of our highest points in town.
I sent my stuff to Sean pretty early on. And I'm on the committee that honestly, I mean, that's kind of what I said, was I wanted as little impact on the open space that we have there as possible, because I value that area as open space. Just as you're going south, just past where the trailhead is, there's a kind of a dip, and I don't know what that is in there, but there's a lot of trees in there and shrubs in there. It kind of looks like there might be some utility, something going on in there, but I think there's a coyote den in there, maybe bobcat. It's just this really cool protected area where there's a lot of wildlife, and there's not a lot of protected areas from the wind in Superior. So, and I don't know, just as we're losing open areas, I want to, even the littlest, tiniest places, there's a lot of traffic going back and forth on McCaslin, and it's just nice to see green areas, especially when you're looking to the west. But then I'm torn because, like Patrick was saying, I feel like putting a trailhead there is going to be such a huge attraction. So many people are going back and forth on McCaslin that don't live in Superior, and they will stop there, and it's going to be such an amazing view. I mean, the view of the mountains from there is incredible, and we don't in Superior have a sign for saying the town of Superior in a beautiful natural place. I recently came across this just personally when my child was supposed to do a video for a TV program demonstrating hometown pride. And I wanted to take her outside and do this video in front of the town of Superior sign, and all I could do was out there. And we tried up on 128 where there's this little sign saying, "You're leaving Superior, you're coming in." It was so windy up there, I couldn't even, all you could hear was So, I don't know, like, I'd love to see it be open space with minimal impact, but then again, we're gonna do this thing, so I want it to be a showstopper. Like, I want it to be something we're super proud of. I want it to, you know, the open space and the beauty that we have, that view from Superior to shine. And I want us to have a sign that says Town of Superior, so people can take a picture of themselves in front of the beautiful scene that we do have, and that people remember they are in Superior when they're there at that trailhead and looking at that
But
beautiful
why does it
view.
have to be one or the other? I mean, you've got two extremes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I'm like
Yeah.
conflicted with my.
I think the point is good. I mean, even, so like that stair idea, right? If you built stairs, you would see this big straight light going up
I'd be
that
against
hillside.
building stairs, because I agree with your idea of keeping it open and as natural as possible. But at the same time, we can highlight it in some way. I'm saying there's a middle space here.
Oh, yeah.
The-
I'm not
But you
trying
have to remember that every time we add something, we add whatever from that list, there's a maintenance cost for us to also, to keep paying to maintain that structure. And I'd rather see us using our money to obtain open space than to maintain open space. And that's why I prefer to see more natural and less impact.
I think there's also a concern, considering the small space with clutter. You know, if you have a bike
Yeah.
station and a refill station and binoculars and all these different signs and so forth, then you kind of have everything all the way, there's something all the way around the whole parking lot. And I don't know whether that detracts from the sort of open vista that you're talking about there. I mean, all these things sound great. I mean, you just look at it and you're like, wow, I would love that and that and that and that. But considering that it's a relatively small space,
Too much.
I don't know whether you can actually fit it all around there, especially if there's going to be a garden and
And I think that's what our homework is going to be, is to really think about, look at the plans. Patrick, maybe you could send out a link to the original plans so we can visualize it again. That would be really helpful, because there really isn't that much space. And going down the hillside, as much as it sounds interesting, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I want to be able to look when I drive up McCaslin off at all that open space. And I don't ever want that to change. Right now, the Rogers is going to be built, we're losing all that as you're coming up McCaslin. To maintain that is going to be key, I think. And I think see a lot of head nods, I think we all agree, so. I think we're going to cut a lot off this list.
Have y'all ever been to the Aquarius trailhead in Louisville?
Yep.
It's so basic and so beautiful up on that ridge, and then they just have the most amazing sign with all the mountains labeled there.
That is a cool
That is,
sign.
yeah,
That's
and
one of
it's
my
also
favorites.
in perfect condition
Mhm.
still after years and years and years and years. I don't know who they got to do that, but it's lasted amazing. But yeah, I think that would be great there.
Well, I think we have a good list. I think it will be important to feed back to Tracy and Sean to think about, this same conversation, that what is our bias? Is it to maintain open space or build the most amenities we can? I think I know where they'll fall, but we should ask them.
And I think there's also, we need to make sure that we communicate that back to the other committees as well.
Absolutely.
So that they're not like, they didn't take any of our ideas,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah,
we talked about it, so.
I think that's good.
One of the things that I was because I was kind of trying just to wrap my head around, because there's a lot of great stuff. You want to capture all the really awesome feedback. And ProStack has had this amenities prioritization list for years and years. And it was interesting because when my staff and we took a look at this, we actually started saying, that would actually be cool there. That would be cool at closer to 128.
Yeah.
That could fit at Colton.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting. We started mentally saying, this is a killer list. Maybe not a killer list for here, but this is a killer list.
Yeah.
And the feedback's invaluable because it's coming from your most vested, volunteers. So maybe this spins into an open space trailhead amenity prioritization list that you guys visit as we acquire, as we maintain,
Priority list.
you know,
Something else to rank?
add it to your list. But, you know, it was interesting because we were like,
Oh, that's cool.
man, observation binoculars, you'd love to have that on 128.
Yeah.
Picnic areas, that picnic area might work here, but we were also saying maybe,
When you say 128,
Yeah.
you mean up on the top of Central
yeah,
Link?
you know, if you snag it, you know.
Because there's a
how-
big flat,
Yeah,
Food
there's
vendors.
a really,
in the park,
that could
Yeah.
be really, a cool
Um,
see how many people go up there for 4th of July.
Right.
hang out. It's just such a cool spot.
bike maintenance, we said, you know, that probably does make sense for here,
Mhm.
or maybe even future parks 1 and 2,
Mhm.
where you know that we're gonna have people kicking off a really a long run at one of these 2 trailheads. Okay, so maybe that stays. So we mentally were starting to kind of play that game of placing them
Oh, yeah.
around, so
That makes so
keep that
much
in mind.
Well, that's a great way to phrase it, that
Yeah.
we're maintaining this list, and even if it didn't make this amenity, it's available.
Repurposing it.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, another list.
Yeah,
But we won't necessarily have to review it every year. It's kind of
Good.
just
That-
there
that's
when a new something comes up, we can just go look at it and see what we'd like to recommend. And probably add new stuff to it as we think about it. So it's almost like a list someone should maintain for us. Not me, but someone.
The royal.
Anyway,
someone.
but this is an awesome presentation, so I appreciate you guys putting this together.
Do we feel okay with this? So we're gonna get a list together, probably in Excel, or Excel, I think it's just easier. If we don't do it that way, I'm happy to put it in Excel, because that's how I'll choose to manage it, and then just make notes. And what do we want the homework asked to be? Do we want it to be what would be in your small, medium, and large, and then have a conversation around it?
Are we
Or
gonna try to price it first, or just let that
No, that's-
go?
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to trim it down a little bit. I think we
Yeah.
wanted to get our large list and then have it priced. But I think some of these things would come off the large list with that lens of maintaining the open space.
Right.
Yeah,
So I guess
definitely.
we need a small, medium, large, and then a don't. Like,
Yeah,
we don't
I
want
think
this
it
on
would
any
be,
list.
or,
Yeah.
yeah, we can say it a little softer, that for some other space or
Yes.
other trailheads.
Or pass.
Consider for, yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I think that actually could be an interesting way to do this. I don't know, because we need to get our trail rankings done in the next 3 weeks, or our property ranking done. Well, let's just shoot for it and see. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Vanessa, what do you think? Will that work, or what are you thinking on how you think this might work?
I'm thinking I wish Sean was here
Uh,
to
Well,
say.
But Vanessa, just ask Sean and have him come up with a proposal. I mean, we're deciding here that we want to do some homework and do some sort of yes, no on this. I don't think we
Okay.
have to have that figured out. Like I said, Sean is really strong in this area. I think he'll have a good
Yeah.
idea. Fine going with that. And then bring it back next week or next meeting, and, you know, we may not finalize it next meeting, but we'll get it a lot further along. So, good? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. That's cool, it's exciting. National Trails Day planning, I think we covered that. I think we're good there. I'm not sure why that was an extra one on here. I guess we just want to keep it on here as we're getting closer to make sure we're thinking about it. Board dinner takeaways. Sean and Tracy and Joel aren't here. But I guess actually we did send out the email. You know, the biggest takeaway from me was some work we should do around Town 15. And, you know, bring up, we're gonna have to schedule our leadership meeting with ProStack in Q2 and start discussing it with them and just see what their temperature is for cycles to work on this. But, you know, Kevin, if you, and I think the notes captured it well, but the board's recommendation was have fun with it. We'd love to see something, but they're not looking to be making any decisions on that anytime soon, especially with all the other development that's going to come forward to the town. So it's, I'd say, you know, medium urgency
because of that, but we want to make sure it doesn't fall off our list completely this year. So that's the way I took it anyway. What am I missing any other big ones for Peter? I have the notes, I just gotta go read them again. I mean, I thought actually the notes were really succinct and pretty good, so. But I think it went well.
I think the overarching theme I heard was just that we don't need to wait around for their permission, that if we want to pursue something, let's pursue it, if it's something that we feel strongly as a committee. Because I don't know that that was something that is, I don't personally feel that has been an explicit thing come up in the past, that it's kind of felt like we've had, not tiptoe, but felt like we're not really sure, can we do this, should we do this? And to me, it feels like, no, we can be more proactive.
Well, and unfortunately, that's just we're all recovering from the Zaharias recommendation 18 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any of you were, I don't think any of you were on the board when that all happened, but we were kind of shell-shocked after that, like not knowing what we could be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And then with the other discussion from the training about what's a meeting and what's not a meeting. But I feel like we're feeling better about that. I mean, I'm personally over that whole thing. I think we've got strong support from the board to be looking at what we want to be looking at, full steam ahead. So I think that's a good point.
So I left that meeting wondering, since we talked about giving them our vision about Town 15, and it seemed like that's what they were saying we could do, why we don't do that for everything.
Do that for everything?
Any of the open spaces or any of the ideas that we have. Why would we tell them what our vision is for Town 15 and not tell them what our vision is for CenturyLink or for...
Because we own, the town owns Town 15.
Because the town may choose to not make it open space and make it commercial or sell it to someone, or it's to weigh against to have it in their pocket when this charter school application situation comes up again. Now that we should be doing that for those other spaces, but that one is just fresh, and that's why that came out that way. That's what started the whole thing, was.
I'm
sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
I totally understand how it came up. I guess I was just thinking, if they knew what our vision was for these other pieces of land, then it would make more sense to pursue getting it or show interest in it or the value of it or reflecting back what the community's thinking about it, or I don't know.
No, I mean, as an example, the picture that Kathy passed around is kind of a vision for Zaharias and the HHR area. I mean, I know that one is a little bit tricky right now with the development proposal on it, but is that the kind of thing that you're thinking about?
I don't know. I guess just, why would we want this piece of land as open space? What are we thinking of? Why would we think that it would tie in well in our town? What are we thinking that we would use it for? Or I don't know. It just seems.
Well, I mean, open space, though, pretty much by our charter, is to stay natural open space.
Right.
So there's there's trails, there's maybe weed mitigation and wildlife encouragement. There's not a whole lot other there. And this one's a little bit special because we feel that ProStack and OSAC will have very different, maybe not completely different, but if we were to do it on our own, we would be very divergent. But if we could come together and have a joint agreement, we feel like it would have more weight with the board than separate.
If we suddenly acquired another piece of land somewhere, anywhere, would we then be giving them the vision of what we would want to do with that land, but maybe they would already have ideas about what they were gonna do with the land? I don't know.
Well,
I think
if we acquire a piece of land, I mean, you guys can't make the decision to acquire the piece of
Right, right.
land, the town board is. So in many ways, I think if you feel strongly about a piece of land, you're gonna be selling us on what your vision is for that. I mean, at least when I look at the list now, I look at what are the various things that you think are, why is CenturyLink the most valuable piece of land that we want to go after? And we have the perspective from open space of why that's important. So I think it exists already, but if you have additional thoughts on a piece of land and why it's valuable, then you would certainly want to add it in when you give us the ranking. If it's something different, you know, the Town 15, when we gave the direction, it was because somebody could come to us again and ask us to develop that piece of land. And what we really wanted from OSAC and ProStack is give us an amazing vision for that piece of land. Don't go out and hire anybody to do it, but give us your, you know, you're our 18 experts. Give us your vision of that so that the next time somebody comes to us with a proposal, I mean, honestly, this is, I think, where Laura Skwadzinski and I were. Give us that vision so that when somebody else comes, we just go, not, you know, we're not developing it, but the best idea we've seen right now is something that has been developed by our Open Space and Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. So give us something that makes it pretty easy for us to say next time, not interested. So that's why Town 15 was particularly something we really thought it would be valuable for you guys to attack for us.
And I
Go ahead.
100% agree. And what Allison and I were talking about doing is, you know, in some form or fashion, staff's been working on plans for the Town 15 since 2006. And, right, we've changed over boards, but, you know, even with the community center discussion last year, we have full-blown renderings, right? We also have concepts for leaving it completely open. So one of the things I think staff would like to maybe throw out to you guys, is there an interest in seeing what the history is dating back from the early renderings? I mean, we've heard everything from ball fields on there to completely open to housing development to commercial. I do agree. I think if you guys do this conversation separately, you're going to be pretty far apart. I think the board, in their smart ways, is good because they're going to force you guys to have the conversation early because they're not going to want two recommendations. Yeah. But there is an insane amount of work that's already been done on the Town 15 that, you know, we could probably dust off that file so you guys can say, yeah, this makes sense, that doesn't make sense.
Interesting to have the history.
You know, because the context gets lost. Every couple of years when you rotate elected officials or committee members, you know, the context really does get lost. I remember when we talked about this, and I remember talking about buying it.
Yeah.
And when we talked about buying it, it was, well, you know, we're not sure we want housing on it, so we really need to buy it. We'll figure out what we want to do with it later.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that, if you guys are interested, we'd be happy to put that history together.
We'll work that into the agenda at some point.
Do you also have the history on CenturyLink by any chance?
Yeah, you know, I'm learning it as I go because a lot of it even predates me, you know.
Yeah,
but
I ran into Joe Sorelli,
Yeah.
who was a prior trustee, and he was telling me that they were within inches of acquiring the property
Yeah.
years ago, but Boulder County backed out, so we didn't have the money.
Yeah,
But we
and
could have been spared this agony.
and we, you know, we've been working with the Conservation Trust Fund for years, you know, all the way back to when the districts dissolved in 2002, 2003, and the department was created. That was one of the first things that staff worked on. So there is, Marcia, there's a lot of history there.
There's a lot of history. What I think you were struggling to say is, I don't think we have the time to go through all the properties and do our visions for all of them, but maybe we could just do like the top 3 or something, or the, whatever we feel strongly about.
And with all, I mean, Rogers is pretty much developed, Ridge
Yeah.
is off the list, Anderson is off the list. We've only got 4 or 5 properties left. So the other thing that we'll do is after we do our ranking, we do an update to that open space summary report. And that's where we put the OSAC findings and recommendations. And that would be an opportunity to enhance what we think the vision is for that property. So I think that would be an appropriate avenue to think about that and see how we could change that. Because last time when we updated that, we didn't have a bunch of time to really change the format of what that section looked like, and we could completely rethink that and redo that if we felt a better format was necessary, or just some new content. So by all means, let's discuss that as we go through the properties.
So maybe I shouldn't say this directly, but I'm just gonna say it.
Go for it.
How do we know that if the town acquires CenturyLink, it's gonna be open space?
Because we're using open space funds for it, and that's the charter
Okay.
of what those funds are for.
There's legalities around what the money can and can't be used for. Yeah.
There's no discussion from the town board at all of acquiring that except as open space. Now, there's certainly considerations that if they keep part of the land and, they may develop their part of the land that they keep, but our discussions are strictly to acquire it as open space.
Okay.
Can't guarantee you what's going to happen
Sure.
in November of 2020. But based on the current board, there's absolutely no discussion because we are only committing open space money at this point to purchase it.
We'll get it done before then.
Yeah.
Please.
Right, and you would be hard, if we were able to snag that property, the political backlash of any future board ever trying to do anything other than preserve that, I mean, you would be ousted instantly.
We may be the first town of Superior recall.
Yeah, but legally, so per the language in the ballot that allows us to tax in perpetuity, it would legally have to be checked out. The attorney would say, yep, you spent it with open space. I guess hypothetically, you could say, well, maybe we take our general fund and acquire $17 million of general fund, but you still politically, I can't see it happening. So I think it'd be a safe bet.
Yeah.
But is it likely that you would come to us then and say, so what's your vision with this land? Where would you put a trailhead? Where would you put trails? Would there be a trailhead parking lot? All these things that we're kind of talking about with Shan, to have a vision like that, and it would need to come together like that. And
I mean, Shan took, what, 2 or 3 years? Since we bought it to get this far.
Okay.
So the most important thing, in my opinion, is to buy it, and then we have some time to figure out.
I mean, we don't even know if we're going to get all of it. They might keep part of it.
Oh, I understand all that. I'm just saying, while we were talking about putting together a vision for Town 15, it just got me to wondering about thinking ahead about some of these other parcels, especially knowing that we have potentially one coming down the road, hopefully, and if there was something that we needed to put together, big picture, vision-wise for that, thinking ahead.
Yeah.
We have Shan now, right? We can use that.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing where you're coming from, and even thinking back to that great list that was generated from amenities. I mean, I think that's how you start to develop these kind of visions. At least that's been my experience with ProStack, is if the opportunity presents itself and the timing's right, the funding's right, and there's the kind of synergies there, hey, we've got this information that we've been kind of thinking about for a while, and now the opportunity makes sense. I think some of it too is just timing. We were trying to figure out a community center. The board had said, staff, let's get on this community center thing. And then very quickly it turned. And then it was like, well, what could it be? So I think some of the urgency on the Town 15 is that we had this event that occurred last year. The board has prioritized understanding the civic space discussion a little bit more. So it's still in kind of everybody's mind. So I think timing on this one is a little bit more urgent than, let's say, the 76 properties or something like that.
That's also what money do we have left, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's very basic.
My other thought is if we were doing this for each property, it could take up the remaining hours
Yeah.
we have this year for our meetings. And so doing it one at a time as they're more urgent might be a way to continue to get the rest of the work done.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great discussion point and great question.
I feel like that's our job.
It is.
I feel like that's when I think of what OSAC does or should be doing. I feel like what our vision is for the undeveloped pieces of land is what we should be.
Well, that's
Well,
true. We do have an approved work plan that we need to,
Yeah.
I mean, we've built ourselves a busy work plan, and maybe we decide not to next time because of wanting to focus on these things, so. Anyway.
I think our vision is to get more open space.
It is, yes. It just
That's
in
our
the past,
vision,
nothing was moving, so I think the work plan
No, I
grew
totally-
to fill in other things, and that, I think that'll be a great thing to discuss in the fall when we work on our next work plan.
I think the fact that the trustees are behind CenturyLink and we've got this momentum, I mean, I really feel good about it, that we're gonna be moving towards that in the next year or two.
All right, well, let's move on
Yeah.
and look at the creek pictures.
I'll throw this out there to you guys and you guys choose. I've written this thing narratively as well. So if you guys are chomping at the bit and you guys are wanting to stay on a time frame, I can send this to you digitally. I could also quickly just kind of show you where we're at now. So up to you guys.
I would love it digitally. I mean, can't even speak anymore. I'm so tired.
You're talking about 6D that you can send it to us?
I have a pretty robust
6E.
updated.
6E.
Oh, 6D.
Coal Creek.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
Coal Creek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you guys?
Yeah,
it's
well, no, but it'd be great to see it visually. I mean, Allison was giving us a,
Yep.
yeah, we're building the drop structures, but you said you think it's about a month out
Yep.
from being done?
Yep.
So in about a month, when we come into our meeting, we'll be seeing that.
And I'll get you I just had to provide it for the board as well, so I can give you the same with the photos and the drone video and the fly-throughs and the plant species and all that. We're close. It's awesome.
Doesn't look like it when you're driving by right now, but.
No,
it's gonna be
we were walking
exciting.
down in there this morning and it's exciting.
Cool.
And then I'd let Ryan know too, we'll take the advisory committees out there prior to the public getting to see it, prior to the trails being open, and give you guys a little sneak peek.
Awesome. Okay, we're on to standing updates. Conservation funds update. Tracy told me in her email that they're actively engaged with CenturyLink. So that was her comment. I think we probably just leave that one there. Rocky Mountain Greenway, Joel couldn't make it, so we don't have an update. We'll get an update next time. Oil and gas, Marcy, do you have anything you
Well,
want to talk about?
it passed the state senate and
Oh,
it looks like
the
it's going,
The bill.
the bill, because we just, Democratic Women of Boulder County had a dinner on the topic yesterday. And they had, Tim was there from Safe Superior talking.
Oh, okay.
So basically, the bill has passed the state senate. The Democrats have a really clear majority in the House, so it's expected to pass in the next week. And the governor is chomping at the bits to sign it. There's already attempts to recall the governor. They're trying to take, but as you know, recall elections are very hard to win, and you have to get all these signatures to get them, and we're talking huge numbers of people. So the problem we were talking about last night was it's going to take the town and just to draft the details of the law and for the towns to draft their regulations, it's going to take 1 to 2 years. And laws are always prospective. So what they're doing, we had a representative there from the Sierra Club. So his point right now is to stall all the court cases as much as he can, trying to get these new policies into play, because now they're going to take the health and safety of the citizens and the community is now a factor, which was never a factor. So the Sierra Club's basically been losing every court case they've been in. So they're trying to stall everything and delay to get these new factors in. And there is definitely, probably most likely going to be an oil and gas law, and we're all very excited about it. Our mayor and Mayor Pro Tem went to testify, and I think Neil went too as well.
So did Kim.
Ken went too, right, I heard about that. They had hearings during the snowstorm. The oil and gas lobby brought in the workers and their families and their children. And it was very interesting because they said that once the time hit 5 o'clock, everybody went home because they were off the clock. But the real people that really cared about it were there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and were actually testifying for it, you know. So I think it's going to happen, and I feel really good about it. My concern, which I brought up last night and no one really answered it, is all laws and regulations are prospective, and it's going to take time to get them in place. What happens to some of the projects that we have on the books now? You know, we have some problems. I think that's going to take additional legislation one day, but that take one step at a time, because you can't apply a new law retroactively. So, but it's very exciting stuff, guys. I mean, I think our elections at the local level will change going forward. I think we're going to see some oil and gas candidates. But that's my report.
Awesome, thank you, Marcy. And then we talked about the discussion on the viewing box, but we didn't talk about anything else that Vanessa wanted to bring up on the Raptor program.
Yeah, I'll be quick, but it's super exciting since it's nesting season. But first,
You haven't been sending any pictures.
I know, and it's kind of hard because I'm getting amazing pictures, but I'm also having to ask permission to share them. And Kathy has some, just from the individual monitors themselves.
Oh, I thought
some of them, I don't know. Kathy has some great videos. But I'm trying to work on that myself, but I got a good camera and I'm gonna try to get some pictures so I can share. But I've got some new volunteers, so I'm up to about 8 people that are monitoring now.
That's awesome.
Regularly, I know.
Wow.
Plus me, plus people like Ryan and other people who just have started sending me emails within our committee, or even the trustees, just people who tell me what they see, which is great. But right now we know about 3 red-tailed hawk nests and 3 great horned owl nests in Spear. And all the owls are on babies. Excuse me.
Oh, wow.
The babies have just come out in their nests. We're just starting to see balls of fluff peeking out. We can't tell how many they have yet, but hopefully good pictures should be coming soon. And the red tails, they're building their nests now, and so they're not on any eggs yet. They're a little later than the owls. But the newest one just popped up 2 days ago on Town 15 down there in the creek on the tree. And I've been watching this pair for 10 years now, and they used to be where Calmonte was, and then they kind of moved across over into the Boulder County open space along the creek. And then I couldn't find them this year, and I heard that your daughter knew that they might have been over there on Town 15, and I drove over there.
I think I saw that. I saw it running one morning. I just saw the bird fly out, and I took my daughter over it.
And then somebody told me, and then I ran over there right away and found it.
That's so
I
cool.
was so excited.
Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was so cool to see.
Yeah.
I know what to do with this now. I know what to do now.
It's so easy to see from Colton, kind of if you just look over towards Town 15. It's the big branch that's hanging out right there, and it's this huge nest, and often the red-tailed hawk is just sitting there. So, yeah, and I'll just tell you real briefly kind of where the nests are, just so y'all have an idea. But the red tails there's one over by Marshall. There's the one over the dog park at Autry, which is very much in public view. And then there's the one on Town 15. And the owls, there's the one at Community Park. And there's one down at Mayhopper's Single Tree Trailhead, down in those trees by the creek, those nice big trees. And then there's one over by Heartstrong, kind of across from Superior Elementary within Rock Creek, that the neighbors and community in there really enjoy watching over the years. And it's always been a red tail, and this year the owls stole it. And the owls are in there, so the neighbors in there really love watching that one.
Well, if you see Kathy out, you'll see her, because a tripod set up in their camera. I just happened upon her the other day, and they were staring at that owl, and we got to watch video of little babies in there, and man, it was cool.
Yeah, Kathy and her husband are great. They'll set up a camera there in Community Park, and then when the kids walk by, they have the kids stop and look, and they tell them all about it. Yeah, they're great.
My daughter got to enjoy that, and it truly was an enjoyment thing for her, so it was cool.
Yeah, there's so many people that we're just getting more volunteers that walk by and see our volunteers, and then they say, oh, I've been watching those birds for years, and can I volunteer? So that's how we get the new volunteers, and it's great. So thank you for letting us do this program, and I think it's amazing how much it's taken off just in 6 months.
Well, like I said, ever since I've been on here, we've been looking for this, and we never found it until you came on and got this going, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool. With that, we're adjourned. So,
Can I
oh,
ask
yes.
one more question? While we're on standing updates, is it possible to get an ongoing standing update of new development proposals that have come in? Because when we talked about it.
Well, this is actually a topic that I am pushing very hard for the town manager. The city of Louisville actually puts all of the minute that a proposal is submitted, the documents are all posted on the town's website. And there's a schedule of when they think they will come, it may say December TBD or something like that. I've found out about it from the city of Louisville. I brought it up at the last meeting. I happened to write an email again today to our town manager, and both the mayor and the mayor pro tem are strongly in support of it. So I don't know how fast the town manager is going to make it happen, but the town board would like to see it happen very fast. So I'm continuing to push on it. So, because I really think that will be helpful. I can't look at it as a town trustee, but you guys can look at it all you want. I can't because of my quasi-judicial status. None of the trustees will be able to look at it, but you guys will, and you will know exactly what the proposals look like every time Louisville gets an update. And I even asked the town attorney about it. I said, because we're a statutory town, is there a reason we cannot do this? And she said, absolutely not. And she says, I actually strongly recommend that you do it, because it takes away the mystery and allow, people then don't think we're hiding anything. I'm not hiding anything from you because I don't know about it, as a trustee, nor do any of we may hear it in passing. So hopefully that will happen soon. And for example, if Saharius is presented, you would be able to look at it and start being able to, think about what kind of changes might be appropriate for OSAC. So hopefully that it isn't like it's anything real complicated. You're not going in there and dialoguing on it. All it lists is, who presented it, who's the staff person handling it, which in the town of Superior, it's only one person, but there, in Louisville, there's a couple of different people, and then all the documents that were submitted with the application are there. So hopefully, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it happens sooner rather than later, because I really do think it'll be helpful for everybody in town. But my understanding from the list that I received from the town manager is Zarius has been submitted. But I don't know what that means.
Well, so back to your point, when that happens, we can make a standing update to say, these are the new,
Yeah.
if you haven't been following, here are the new proposals that are out there,
Yeah.
and just list them. That way, at least this group will be aware.
Hopefully it'll be hopefully it'll be a quick link on the website. You'll be able to go right in there and see it.
Proposal for Zacharias out there.
That is the list that I received.
And this is something.
He didn't know either.
Yeah, so this is something that we're trying to, we have one person
Yeah.
on staff that deals with it. So we're also trying to figure out, as you could imagine, based on the emails today, how to respond to them in questions.
What emails?
So something that we're trying to figure out is, all of us, I think, are in agreement with this idea, but the impact of, we can't have Stephen as the planner then fighting off the public who doesn't like it without having the context of what it is. So I think once we wrap our heads around it, because right now I'm not privy to see it until it's put on my plate to see it. And we were actually just talking about this. A lot of times I'll hear stuff from you guys because you have direct access to the trustees. I don't. I have to communicate. I communicate through the town manager to the trustees. And then there are things that I'm not privy to know until I'm told to look at it. So I heard tonight for the first time that Zacharias is officially
Yeah, I mean, I
in our
think
hands.
that's part of the dilemma we have is, once we post those, how do we make it effective so that Stephen doesn't spend all of his time talking to the public? Maybe it's just, we don't know how that would happen, but literally, if there's 6 in the pipeline right now most of them have to do with this piece of property over here. But at least then people would be able to look at the documents and be prepared for when it actually, because you're not going to be able to change the proposal before it comes to the board and to the planning commission.
Talking about the property over there, it leads to my question is, when we presented our annual plan, Ken said that one of the action points he added to our plan was that the trustees put pressure on the developer to talk to us or liaison with us or do something with us, so we set up some kind of a trail system over there. And with all the building plans coming in this summer, because this is the active time for Town Center right now, because my neighborhood's watching it, where is that? I mean, are we?
So Bill Jenks with the development
Right.
group will
I
be
know
here the April 8th or 9th. I don't remember which day we've settled on. But that conversation will happen with the committee leadership as early as April 8th or 9th. I don't remember.
With us? With OSAC or
Well, the way that
trustees or? With who?
with the committees. And I think an email was sent out.
Well, it was sent to the leader. We originally
Right.
discussed
Okay.
making sure leadership could
Yeah.
be there, and then
With ProStack.
with ProStack.
Yeah.
And I assume that, so to go beyond that, it would need to be a meeting, because then we would have more.
And we'll post it as a meeting. So I guess that would be something that this group should dialogue as is. Right now, it's set up that the committee leadership will attend that meeting.
Okay.
But if there's a need,
When it's a meeting, everyone is welcome to attend. The hard
Yeah.
part is it'll be during the day,
yeah.
a weekday.
Right.
So schedules may be more difficult for other people.
Well, the problem is that all the building proposals are coming in over the summer, so if we're gonna be setting up trails or talking about trails or whatever, we've got to jump in there before everything's gone.
I
There's
understand.
also
I mean, it's
talk
gonna
about a
happen.
reservoir there or some kind of a pond.
I mean, this
and-
meeting's going to happen in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, April-
It's April.
April 8th
Yeah,
or
well,
9th.
that's what he said,
Yeah,
April.
April 8th or 9th.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. And
Let me know because my neighborhood's very interested.
in the trail connectivity.
Well, in everything that happens back there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I know this meeting will be specific
No, I
to
understand
trail.
that.
Okay,
I understand that.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, let's call it. Thank you all for a productive meeting. Appreciate everyone's time.
Kevin, make sure in the notes, the time that we.
That's always-
Okay.
thank you for
I'm like getting a deep
remembering that.
memory to tell
Thanks for keeping
whoever.
us honest on that. Kevin, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So it's a surprise.
Check that I haven't.
Added any.